Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Aunt Karen doesn't tip, so I refused her Instacart order. I, 23 female, have been an Instacart driver since March of 2020, and it's been a lucrative side business for me. I'm always picky on what batches I accept. Miles driven, the amounts of items shopped, and the overall payout are all important to me. A lot of my earnings are going towards a down payment for a house. My aunt, 37, is a notorious cheapskate, even if it affects other people providing services to her. She will pay what is required, service fees and costs of items, and not a penny more. This includes in restaurants. My mother and other family members are aware of her doing this, but enable it by covering up constantly, like slipping cash to the waitstaff behind her back. I absolutely refuse to go along with it. Not sure if this is relevant, but my aunt doesn't get around that well physically, weight and arthritis issues, so being on her feet for a long period of time is difficult for her. She called up my mother and asked if I was on Instacart. She said no. I was in the kitchen eating lunch. She said that she placed her first order excitedly, since first orders have a promotional deal. Mom asked me to log in, and I did. I can see the map of where an address approximately is, along with a few other things before accepting a batch. It was obvious which one was hers. I told my mom I wasn't taking it and that it was a terrible order. High amount of items, 115, and a 15-mile round trip, and no tip. My mom went off on me, saying that she's family, and this should be an exception to my standards. I told her that no tip equals no trip, and that was it. My aunt called my mom almost 30 minutes later, whining that nobody will take her order. I took the phone and told her that I saw the order, and if she doesn't want to appropriately appreciate her shopper, then she can go get the items herself. With that said, I took a much better order and walked out. They're both mad at me and said I'm a terrible person for how I handled things. Am I the jerk? Edit. I didn't expect to get all these responses. Thank you so much. Also, would like to add that I am a shopper that always tries to go above and beyond for my customers. Whenever an item is out, I'm texting customers with pictures of the shelves and offering substitution options. I rarely refund items and customers are happy. My rating is a perfect 5-star at the moment. Edit 2. My pay goes like this. Batch pay is $7 or 60 cents per mile, whichever is more. The rest of what I make is tips. Again, thank you all so much for your responses. Edit 3. Sorry for forgetting to mention this for all the international Redditors out there, but I'm located in the United States, where some service/gig workers depend on tips to survive. Crazy neighbor demands we take down our Halloween decorations. My husband and I moved into this neighborhood about 2 years ago after we got married. We haven't been able to celebrate Halloween the last 2 years due to lockdown. It's our favorite holiday, so this year we decided to go all out. We filled our yard with tombstones and skeletons. All of our bushes and trees are wrapped in fake webbing, the tree closest to the street having a huge 6-foot spider dangling from its limbs. The final touch was a huge rope web that we added extra webbing to fill it out that hangs from our roof all the way down to the street. We got a couple of fuzzy spider decorations to place around the yard. It took us hours to decorate, and we were so excited. My husband looked like a kid in a candy store. Yesterday, while my husband was at work, I heard a knock on my door. It turned out to be my neighbor. He looked absolutely frantic. I didn't even have a chance to ask what was happened when he yelled in my face, "You need to take all this crap down." I was really taken aback. This neighbor has always been very nice to us. I've seen other houses decorate in the past few years, maybe not to this extent, but I know it's not against our HOA rules. I decided to ask if that was his issue, just in case. He looked at me completely dumbfounded and started going off. "Cut the crap! You need to put all this away. My wife has arachnophobia. Your yard practically gave her a heart attack this morning." I kind of messed up here and laughed. I didn't think our purple fuzzy spiders with big googly eyes would even scare the little kids in the neighborhood. "You're pulling my leg, right?" He got in my face and practically stepped into my house. "You're going to scare my wife to death. If you and your husband don't take all this crap down, I'm reporting you. I'm a retired police officer, and I can make this a real problem for you." I started seeing red and getting really uncomfortable because I was completely home alone and my husband wouldn't be home for hours. Even if I wanted to take it down, it would be impossible without his help. Listen, this is our first time getting to celebrate Halloween in our house, and we really put a lot of effort into our yard. None of our spiders even look realistic. Can we please not do this right now? "I don't give a hoot. Take it down or else." He didn't really give me a chance to answer. He just started walking back to his yard. Our decorations are not scary. Other neighbors have even said our yard is cute. We also spent a few $100s decorating it. It would be a huge waste to take it all down. I haven't told my husband yet because I know he's petty and will throw a fit, and probably decorate it with even more spiders out of spite. I refuse to take down our decorations. This is really important to us, and I just want to enjoy my favorite holiday with my husband. Am I the jerk? Update. I talked to my husband about it, and we're installing a Ring doorbell this weekend. I'll be taking it up with the HOA and documenting everything that happens going forward. HOA president is a bully. Well, his ego allows me to bully him. So this is a story about a property I own, but rent out. This may sound strange, but I don't think I could afford to live there these days. It's become somewhat exclusive. I guess this could also go in pro-revenge. I've used dollars here because it's what most people reading this will relate to. This doesn't take place in the US, and I've given an approximate dollar value for local currency. Background. A million years ago, my property was part of a large farm. I bought it about 30 years ago, long after the farm was broken up, but before there was any development near it. The piece of land I got was near the back entrance that joined into a dirt road that ran past. The more expensive plots were near the tarred road in the front. I originally bought a large chunk of the land intending to do some farming, but that never happened. About 20 years ago, some of the owners got organized. We'll call them the organized owners, OO, and had the area designated as a municipal suburb. The municipality agreed to put in tarred roads, water, and electricity if a certain percentage of the properties were developed. A construction company linked to the OO went around contacting the owners who had land but no buildings, offering to build houses for us at a very, very reasonable price, contingent on them getting a certain minimum amount of people signing up. While this was happening, one of the OO approached me and offered to buy half my property. I agreed, and the money I got for the sale, which was about 4 times what I'd paid for the entire chunk of land 10 years prior, combined with a small loan from the bank, gave me what I needed to pay for a house to be built, and it was a fairly large and nice house too. I stayed in the house for a few years, and my mom moved in with me. I had decided to subdivide the property again and build her a house next to mine, but unfortunately, an undiagnosed tumor took her before the house could even be started. Well, it was diagnosed, but too late to do anything. Soon after she passed, we moved out of the house and started renting it out. About a few weeks before we moved out, the OO I'd sold the land to started talking about starting an HOA. I wasn't interested and left soon after. About 2 years later, the neighbor OO contacted me. There were 2 roads entering the area these days. The original tarred road that was near where the farmhouse had been and was entered from a fairly busy main road, and my dirt road back entrance, which was now a tarred entrance from a wide but not very busy municipal road. The HOA was trying to get the old farm road blocked off to improve security and decrease through traffic, and wanted the road next to my property to be the main and only entrance to the HOA community, and they were pressuring me to join. I said no, and I was adamant, and eventually they accepted that, but they told me they wanted to have a sign near the road welcoming people to the neighborhood, and the only practical place to put it was on the edge of my property. They also wanted to build a little guard hut and have a security guard permanently monitoring who went in and came out, and they wanted to build his shed on my property. We came to an agreement where they would mow the lawn and pay the equivalent of about $35 per month in exchange for the land they needed. I was very happy with this arrangement since the property was fairly large, and it didn't really cost them anything since they already had a full-time gardening service servicing the HOA. This all happened over a decade ago. They eventually got the other main road blocked off, and the HOA is paying for Rent-A-Cop to be permanently stationed close to my property, as well as mowing my lawn and paying me enough money for takeaways for the family each month. I'm occasionally contacted by members of the HOA to get me to sign up, but I'm really not interested. My property has been rented to the same tenant for all these years, and everything there is going well for me. Until about 3 years ago, when someone scared the crap out of my tenant's young daughter by making strange noises and firing off near her window 3 or 4 times over about a month. This scared my tenant, and I guess it scared the HOA because they and my tenant contacted me with a proposal. I joined the HOA, and they give me exclusions from the HOA rules, including exclusions from paying the monthly fees, and in addition, they will build a wall around the entire HOA neighborhood, including electric fencing and security cameras. They told me they had wanted to do this for a while, but were unwilling to build the wall on property that was not in the HOA. I couldn't see the downside, and so I agreed. The dishonest dealings. It took a little over a year to build the wall, and everything got completed, which was quite fast. And then, a month to the day after everything was done, my tenant got an HOA warning about his dogs barking. He told the HOA that while the property was in the HOA, it was exempt from the rules. The HOA told him that they had canceled the exemptions and that he had 30 days to comply. He contacted me, and I opened some mail I'd gotten from the HOA. I had ignored it since I was supposed to be exempt from the rules and fees. Man, did I get a surprise. They had retroactively canceled the exemptions and were claiming 1. That I pay late fees going back over a year, 2. That the easement agreed had been canceled, and that they were retroactively canceling it a year back because the HOA contract allowed them to use small unused portions of HOA members' lands for the common good for free. 3. That I refund them the money they had paid for the easement over that period. 4. That I owed them money for the garden service mowing the large lawn. And 5. That I would be fined for each infraction my tenant failed to remedy. This started an expensive process involving lawyers and the court system that ended with a judge telling me that what the HOA had done was mostly legal. They had the right to revoke the exemptions, but that they had to give me a 30-day notice. As I was walking to my car, the neighbor, OO, the one who bought half my land so many years ago, told me that I was stupid to have refused to join when the HOA started, as I could have been a founding member, whatever that means, and that next time I should be sure to understand the documents I signed before signing them. The malicious compliance. Neighbor OO was right. I should have read the contract better. Also, I was interested in what it meant to be a founding member. Spoiler, nothing. And so when I got home, I grabbed the HOA contract I'd signed, as well as all the other documentation they had provided me with, and started reading. I was determined to break every rule I could find a loophole to break. I didn't get past the first page. While the street address of the property is used to identify it for all practical purposes, in the city records, it has a unique property number that has to be used on legal records. When my mom moved in, I'd subdivided the remaining property but hadn't yet started building on it. And when I gave the HOA the easement all those years ago, it had been on the property I'd sliced off from my mom. And when the HOA set up the contract, they had simply used the property numbers from the easement. The next afternoon, the neighbor OO delivered and had me sign for 2 documents. One telling me that my exemptions would expire in 30 days, and one letting me know that the easement would no longer be required after 30 days. I think he was being a bit malicious here, because I lived about an hour away from the property and he drove out himself. The revenge. Exactly 30 days to the hour after the HOA had given me the 30 days notice, I knocked on the neighbor OO's door. Did I mention he was the president of the HOA? And had him sign for 2 documents. The first was that I planned to build a house on my HOA property, which confused him. And the second was notice that they had 30 days to remove from the property the guard shed, the parts of the electric boom that were on my property, as well as the sign. He tried to engage me, but I ignored him, climbed into my car, and drove off. Early the next morning, I get a call from the HOA lawyer who explained to me that their junk would be staying on my property since it was in an unused part of my land. I explained that I was building a house there and that the land would not be unused anymore. I could hear the smirk as he told me that building a second house to be spiteful would not be accepted by the courts. I sure hope he could hear the smirk in my voice when I told him that the property in question did not have a house and was, in fact, barely large enough for a house to be built and would not be large enough for any extraneous buildings. I then told him to go look up the property in question and call me back. I had sliced off just enough to be legal, which was just enough to build a small house. It took them just under 5 days to get back to me. Their lawyer told me that the terms of the easement meant that I could not cancel without their permission, so I emailed him a photo of the document they sent to me canceling the easement. That afternoon, neighbor OO invited me to lunch, his treat, to discuss the problem. I said no thanks. He extended the offer again 2 days later, and again I said no thanks. Others of the original OO contacted me to try to talk. Some sounded aggressive, some sounded sympathetic. I said no thanks to each one of them. Eventually, the lawyer phoned and asked if we could come to some sort of an arrangement. I asked what he had in mind, and he told me that he was prepared to discuss exclusions in exchange for access to my property. So I said, no thanks, and please don't call me again. About 9 days before their 30 days was up, I got a call from a different lawyer. He said he wanted to negotiate a surrender. His words, not mine. I agreed to meet him at his office the next day. I had already had documents drawn up, and the meeting was as simple as me giving him the documents and him reading them over. My new easement offer. 1. Included everything offered by the old easement offer. 2. I changed the line mow the lawn to get the property to HOA standards and keep it there since it was now in the HOA. 3. Would cost them about $500 per month instead of $35. This amount would increase with inflation. The previous contract didn't include that bit. 4. When canceled for whatever reason, the HOA would have to pay me a cancellation fee of about $7,500. 5. The contract automatically terminated 30 days after. A. Any disciplinary action was taken against me, my tenant, or the property. B. Any complaints were levied by the HOA against my property. C. Any legal action was taken against the property by anyone in the HOA. 6. That lawyer who had offered to negotiate surrender would be allowed to mediate any disputes between us at HOA's expense, and that 7. The HOA would pay all my legal fees if any legal action was taken against me. I had deliberately left some insane things in there so that I could appear to concede some points or be negotiated down when the HOA got indignant about the points I actually cared about. The lawyer didn't look happy. He said that my proposal sounded unfair, but that he'd have the HOA president look at them. I reminded him that in 8 days, I'd be setting a group of men armed with sledgehammers and angry management issues loose on whatever of theirs was still on my property. That evening, I got an irate call from the HOA president. He told me he was never going to sign the new contract. I said, okay. He then told me I was charging too much per month and that it should be at the same rate as the previous contract. I pointed out that when I signed the previous contract, the area was under development and there was at least one other road leading in and out, but that now there was only one. And besides, mine was now developed with everything they needed. He told me that I was forcing them to sign a document they didn't want to sign. I told him that he was free to not sign it. He whined about everything he could think of, and then eventually told me I'd be hearing from his lawyer. The next morning, Surrender Lawyer called to ask if I'd be willing to come to their offices to sign the contract. I agreed. When I got there that afternoon, I learned that Surrender Lawyer was not a lawyer, but a paralegal. He handed me the contract and asked me to sign it. He laughed when I told him I'd have to read through it first to make sure nothing was changed, and mumbled something that sounded like, "I'm sure you would." I read the contract. Nothing had been changed, not a single thing, and the HOA president had signed it, with the surrender paralegal signing as witness. I looked at him and said, "Why did he sign this? It was stupid to sign it." And the paralegal looked at me and said, "I started telling him that signing it would be a bad decision, but he told me I wasn't being paid to think or give legal advice and to shut up, so I shut up." I said, "Do you understand what he signed here?" He looks at me and nods. He said, "I asked him if I should have one of the lawyers look at it before giving it to you, and he told me that we had already billed enough for this and that he'd sign it and sue me after their easement was safe." This happened about a year and a half ago. It took 6 months for the HOA to find out how done for they were. They wanted to sue me, but their lawyers explained to them that there was no way to win. Even if the court sided with them, all they would get is the easement contract voided, and they did not think that the court would side with them. The lawyers were adamant about one thing. The HOA could not live with the HOA pays my legal fees if legal action was taken against me, since it didn't limit the people taking legal action against me to the HOA. As worded, the HOA would be forced to pay for my legal fees if anyone took legal action against me. They argued that the courts would probably not enforce that since the context of the agreement was to do with the HOA. And I told them I was prepared to find out since the HOA would definitely be the ones taking actions against me if they challenged it. I eventually signed an addendum to the contract that said that the neighbor OO, HOA president, would personally pay all my legal fees unless he held no position at all in the HOA, and that the HOA would pay all legal fees if the HOA took legal action against me. He resigned from the HOA at the end of that meeting. I politely told him in front of everyone that he should not sign documents unless he understands what he's signing. He didn't look pleased. It came out during the mediation. You cannot imagine how happy the lawyers were that their paralegal was mediating. That without the ability to control access to the HOA neighborhood through the security boom, partially on my property, the HOA had become a gated community a number of years back. The HOA would be in breach of their own articles and would be dissolved. I also learned, should have been obvious to me, that all the security cameras were wired and all terminate in the guardhouse/guard shed. So basically, it was my way or the end of the HOA. That first mediation was really quite funny. My paralegal looked more than a little glum as we assembled, and he called everyone to order. I suspected he had been told to work against me, so I took the initiative. I reminded everyone there that I had agreed to let paralegal mediate, but that I had agreed to no arbitration at all. If I didn't feel like the proceedings were fair, I'd leave and they could go ahead and sue. Paralegal brightened up and things actually went quite well. I'm writing this after getting home from the latest mediation. I built a paddling pool for the neighborhood dogs, as in I made it myself. I dug a hole, packed it with stone, and added a concrete finish. It was my first attempt, and if I say so, it looked, well, terrible. The HOA called for a mediation meeting, what they do now instead of taking official action. I've declined their mediation requests in the past, in which they told me, as nicely as they could, that the paddling pool was an eyesore right at the entrance of the HOA. I asked them to create a list of what needed to be fixed and how it needed to be fixed to give to me at the next meeting. The list was extensive. It basically required the pool to be rebuilt from scratch. I asked them if there was any way to reduce costs on the work they needed to get it up to HOA standards, and they assured me there was not. I thanked them, pulled out a copy of the agreement where they had agreed to get the property to HOA standards, which I'd highlighted, and handed it to them with the list. I told them the HOA usually preferred if the things were dealt with within 30 days. They started arguing until the mediator reminded them that they could not enforce me to comply without causing the easement to end. I should mention that their lawyers usually no longer attend these things. They said they would get it done. I also learned a lot about neighbor OO that day. I found out that neighbor OO sold his property about 3 months back and is apparently leaving the country for Australia. 2. I found out that the HOA had successfully sued him for a crapload of money they had lost to his mismanagement as part of his vendetta against me. 3. I also learned that he had a vendetta against me. I have no idea what I did to upset him. I'm not sure if I will mess with the HOA anymore. I already think I'm so close to breaking them. The only thing stopping them from canceling the contract is the massive financial loss if they do. I guess a lot depends on how they treat me and my tenants going forward. Also, I do like the monthly payments, though, so I'm motivated to play nice. Neighbor OO was right, though. In the end, you really shouldn't sign documents unless you understand what you're signing. Sorry, that offer has expired. I'm helping my friends who opened an independent guest house before lockdown and managed to hang on till now. Our rates went down to $70 at one point, but now we're back to normal season rates. The business really started booming once people started traveling again earlier this year, so I'm helping them with bookkeeping and training the front desk people. Most people we get here are really excited to be out here and totally normal humans who know how hotels work. I'm, however, baffled by the people who are saving our business by demanding we go way below our asking rate. Yesterday, the main front desk employee, Jane, called up to my office. Jane, someone would like to know if they can have a discounted rate if they book for 14 days. Me, okay, $90 plus tax. I hang up and go back to answering emails. Phone rings again. Jane, she says the room should be $30. Can you please come down? I went to the front desk to see that Jane had clearly been crying, and I braced myself for a fight. Me, hi, my name is Anon. Can I help you? Customer, I'd like a discount for the lengthy stay I'm about to book. Me, yes ma'am. The rate we'd offer is $90 plus tax. Should I go ahead and book you at that rate? Karen, this place is basically a hostel. How dare you charge me so much? I won't pay that. I've worked at scummy places before, and I'd have no problem admitting if it did in fact need work. but this place is really good at proactive repairs. Everyone's rooms and bathrooms are private and self-contained, so I'm not sure how we're comparable to a hostel. We're also lakefront with nice views of the mountains. Me. Well, the nearest hostel is over an hour away in Nelson. Would you like me to call ahead to see if there are any rooms available?
Is it lakefront?
No, ma'am.
Well, what's available on the lake then?
It's XYZ Resort. Shall I call them?
Well, what are their rates?
I'm now just trying to get her to go anywhere else. So I call the resort in Nelson. Nothing is ever cheap there. It's a tourist town. Their nightly rate is $220 plus tax, and I tell her such.
Okay, fine. I'll take the room at $90.
She begins to rummage in her purse. Me. Sorry, ma'am. That offer isn't available anymore. We're only offering the posted rates on our site.
You just told me that was your rate.
Yes, and you declined the room at that price and didn't proceed with the booking. So now the rate is our posted rate. Shall I book you at that rate? This went on for a bit, but I gave up and gave her the owner's number and told her because of lockdown she couldn't wait in the lobby as she was threatening to sit there till she got a room. She left the lobby stomping like a kid. I have no idea where this lady ended up booking, but I feel so sorry for them. Edit. Please stop DMing me telling me that I'm a jerk. Sorry you've had to accept getting yelled at your jobs, but we don't accept these kinds of guests who are demanding to pay a rate we've never advertised. Hold on. Did you miss the part where you are in my driveway? I live right between a town that has several major roads and a town that once a year hosts a regionally major fair. Animals, tractor pulls, smashy cars, live music, and fried everything, etc. My road connects the two parallel roads that join the two towns, so it's the start of a magical week full of idiots trying to find a non-existent shortcut and dumping their trash at the end of my driveway. First day of the fair, meaning tomorrow is when I'll find the traditional Chinese takeout box filled with trash. I'm venting my rage at an old tree stump by my driveway when, lo and behold, an intrepid, middle-aged seeker of the Northwest Passage sails towards me in a particularly crappy Ford Ranger. Idiot.
Hi.
Me, still swinging my axe. If you're going to the fair, this isn't the road you're looking for. You should head back. Guy.
No one ever tell you you should look at people when you're talking to them?
Me, realizing he's one of those types, and I take a break. Nope. If you're going to the fair, this isn't the road. Guy.
Okay, so how do I get there?
You should probably go back the way you came and get back in line.
No, I was already there. I mean more like a shortcut. You, do live here, so you know where those are?
Me. Oh, that one. Yeah, you want to turn the other way out of the driveway. There'll be another line of cars. Get into it.
Wait, what? No, I was already there. I mean a faster way to get to the fair.
Me. Look, friend, there are two exits off this road. Pick one, get in line, you'll get to the fair. Guy.
Wow, what's your problem? You're not very helpful.
Me. It's not my job to help you. I told you what you need, now please leave me alone. Guy.
Excuse me? I just want some information. Why can't you just help me?
Me. I did. Or what do you want me to do? Rearrange a road for you?
You can't talk to me like that.
Why not? I don't know you, and I don't want to. Get out of here.
What did you just say to me? I'm just asking you for help.
And I told you what you need to know. Kindly, go away.
What the heck did you just...
Hold on. Did you miss the part where you are in my driveway? I'm not the fair's help desk, and I definitely don't owe you any favors. Go away. I don't know if it was what I said, the fact that I was slowly losing my temper and still holding an axe, or the siren song of flags and bacon-wrapped Oreos calling him, but that's when the spell broke. The idiot proceeded to gawk at me, then threw his truck into reverse and went tearing back up my driveway. He almost lost it and would have hit the edge of the fence if someone else hadn't taken it out the preceding year. Something tells me it would have been my fault for leaving a tree somewhere he could have hit it, so I almost wish he had clipped something just to see what would have happened next. And sure, maybe I was a little too hostile at first, but expecting good customer service from random strangers is probably a bit much. Either way, I've since acquired a no trespassing sign. Edit. Couple folks have recommended getting or replacing the gate. The problem with that is that gates block me in too, and I don't really care for that. Also, while it wasn't the case at the time, there's since been a stand your ground law implemented, so future incidents definitely can't have any escalation. And while I do understand that they only apply in places where someone is legally permitted to be, and this had essentially turned into trespassing, I'd rather not take any chances on account of no amount of being right is a win when you're also being heard. Karen never shipped my order, so I'm destroying her company. In May, I entered into an agreement to purchase an antique tapestry for several $1,000s. Per the agreement, I would pay X amount every 15 days until it was paid, at which point the tapestry would be shipped to me. I made sure that everything was in writing, official invoice, tracked electronic payments. I made my payments, not a penny was late. It was paid off at the end of August. Seller wrote to me confirming that it was paid off and that she would send it out the next day and send me the tracking number. A week passed and nothing arrived. No tracking number, no tapestry. Every couple of days, I would ask for the tracking number and was answered with promises to get it out the next day, followed by excuses as to why it hadn't gone out yet. I heard everything from getting ready for a grand opening to it was locked in her business partner's house and she didn't have a key. At one point, she even asked me to drive 5 hours to meet her to pick it up in person. I don't have time for that. At the end of September, after a month of broken promises and flimsy excuses, I requested a refund, which she didn't even acknowledge, but promised to get it out the next day. Today, a week into October, I called my card company and asked for a reversal, as I was near the cutoff to file a claim for the first payment. I filed the invoice and submitted the entire string of conversations. My card company agreed that this was a breach of contract and started the process of charge reversal. I contacted the seller one final time to tell them that I was done waiting and had requested a reversal from my card company. Don't send, just forget it. Suddenly, I'm getting photos of her right now with it in her car, not even boxed up, saying she's at UPS, wants to send it out to me right now, and that her company doesn't offer refunds. Sweetie, it's not a refund if you never sent me the tapestry. That's called theft. I held firm and told her that the time to have sent me a photo of it in the car was the day after I paid it off, and the last opportunity she had to correct it was when I first asked for the refund. I told her I would even refrain from leaving negative feedback as long as I got my money back. Now her mom is contacting me, begging me to reconsider, saying they don't have the money to refund, that this is a small business, one of them lost their job, they're the ones who stuck out their necks for me, etc. Not sure how they came to that conclusion, since they have both my money and the tapestry. They don't have the money and I'll tank their business. The mom has even gone so far as to say she'll personally pay for it to be overnighted to me. I am done. I demanded a refund. I lived with super heavy furniture moved out from the walls for over a month anticipating delivery, and I just had it all put back in place. Am I the jerk for insisting on a refund at this point? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the seller? Please let us know. Definitely the seller. Treat your customers like that and you deserve to go out of business. Entitled sister tries to have me arrested, then tries to break in and steal our stuff. We come from a big New York Italian family. My older sister and I are total polar opposites. She was boisterous, very popular, very full of herself, and self-obsessed. Never finishes anything, never finished school, can't hold a job, etc. I, very small, thin, tomboyish, uncoordinated, clumsy, very shy, bookworm. I did not have many friends and usually was wandering alone somewhere or reading. I've had a job since I was 13. Long story, but all ties in as it's only within a few days of it all happening. We are both adults and are both married. My sister has a son and I'm pregnant with my first child. After giving birth, we moved back to the city my family lives in. My older sister is having marital issues and is getting ready to leave her husband. My husband and I had a decent-sized house that we were renting from my uncle. A friend of ours from college was staying in one of the rooms. After a discussion, we decided to invite my sister and her son, who was almost 5, to move in with us as a live-in nanny. We let her know that she would not have to pay any rent or utilities and that she would need to watch my daughter whenever we needed for work. She readily agreed. My husband and I worked opposite shifts, so this was perfect for us. We moved her in right away. We had her sign a paper agreeing to the whole thing. Nothing technically legal, but just something we can refer to later if needed. Things went south pretty quickly. I will be paraphrasing as this was a long time ago and exact wording won't be possible, but pretty spot on. Firstly, let me note that my older sister had gained a substantial amount of weight, which made certain areas of her upper torso much larger than before. We get up one morning to make coffee. Our roommate is already up. My sister comes out wearing nothing but a very baggy tank top and drawers that were much too small for her. My husband spit out his coffee. Our roommate walked in and immediately walked back out. I told my sister to go change. She huffed, put her hands on her hips, and loudly yelled, "This is my house too. I'll dress how I want." I told her to take some pride in herself and go put something on. She stomped off like a kid, dressed, and came back out. My husband asked me loudly, on purpose so my sister would hear, "This isn't going to be a problem with her going forward, is it?" I looked dead at her face and said, "It better not be, right?" She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and said, "Fine, but that just means these idiots," pointing at my husband and roommate, "don't know what they are missing." Still full of herself. Fantastic. This has only been about 2 weeks since moving her in. The next day, our roommate came to us and said that he believed my sister may have taken money from his room. He stated that he left a small amount of cash on his nightstand and it was gone now. His door was always closed, but it was open when he came home. My sister, unfortunately, has stolen cash from me many times when we were kids growing up, so I knew it was probably her. I went to confront her about it, knowing full well she took it. Again, she immediately started off by yelling as loud as she could, "I did not steal anyone's money. You always blame me for this, and you never have any proof." Her son came running around the corner with a fistful of dollars and a big smile. "Is this the money, Mama? The money you said we could go get McDonald's with?" I stared at her and then at my nephew. She walked over to him, took the money from him, and told me, "This is my money. I already had this before I moved in." The one thing she hadn't noticed was mixed in with US dollars were some Mexican pesos. Our roommate's family lived in Tucson, Arizona. His father was a professor at U of A and was of Mexican descent. They would often go south of the border to visit as they had a very large extended family. I quickly snatched the money from my sister's hands. I examined the money, and when I pulled out the pesos, I again stared at her. I said, "And just what did you think you were going to do with these?" She slammed her fist in the wall and told me to buzz off in Italian, and stomped off and slammed her door. My nephew stood there, almost in tears. He was scared and upset. He and I had a wonderful relationship, so I sat him down and told him that everything was okay and not to worry. I would bring him to McDonald's and get him the bestest Happy Meal ever. This brightened him up, and he went skipping off. The next day, we started our work week. I gave my sister our schedules. I went over everything with her. As my daughter had been premature, there was a little bit of extra care involved. She was a few months old now, but she was very small and had a severe lactose allergy. My sister then mentioned that a friend of hers wanted her to go out and party the next night. I told her that she knew she had to watch the baby. She knew several weeks ahead of time what my schedule was and had agreed to it. She said, "I never get to go anywhere, and now that I'm free of that man, I want to go party. Can't you have that guy who lives here watch her?" I said, "That guy is our friend. He's not in town, and it's not his job to watch our daughter. It's your job. You agreed to live here rent-free to watch her whenever we need it." She rolled her eyes and stated, "This is ridiculous. It's one darn night. Can't you figure something else out?" I told her, "If you would like to pay for a babysitter to come over, then fine. But if not, then you will do as you agreed." She said, "Fine." Everything went fine the first night. Came home, baby asleep, sister and nephew asleep. Note on the fridge from hubby stating all seemed good. I go to bed. I'm woken up about 3 hours later to hear kids screaming and laughing. I get up, go out to the living room to see I have a house full of kids and some of my sister's friends, including the one that wanted her to party, sitting on the couch and stairs. I immediately say, "What the heck is going on?" My sister and her friends look up. One of the friends says, "Uh-oh, party police." I grabbed my sister's arm and pulled her to the kitchen. "What the heck is going on here? I'm trying to sleep." She replies, "Since I cannot leave, I invited my friends over to have some fun." I'm really irritated at this point. Your friends need to leave immediately. You did not ask if you could bring all these people here, and it's a work day/work night for us. Have some respect. And you know my daughter cannot have a bunch of people around her. She's still too vulnerable. My sister waves her hand and replies, "Oh, give it a rest. She's in her crib. No one is near her. And I need my friends. I need to socialize. I haven't been able to have fun in years." I insisted again that her friends leave now. I reminded my sister that no matter what she thinks, this is my house. She stomps off again and asks everyone to leave. I get up to go to work that evening. Everything seems to be fine. My nephew bounces in, happy as always, thrilled with his Happy Meal toy we got him the other day. My sister brushes past me, literally bumping my shoulder. I stare again at her. She mumbles something under her breath and heads to the kitchen. I walk in after her and she turns and stares at me. She slams a jar on the counter and immediately starts yelling at me. I didn't know I was going to have to watch your dang kid all the time. I want to go do my own thing. Shocked, I asked her at what point did she not understand that she would be a live-in nanny to watch the baby whenever we were working. She said, "That's not the point." I know what I said, but I didn't think you were serious. I said, "Fine, we'll talk when I get home in the morning from work and figure out where we need to go from here." I got my things and left for work. 2 hours later, I get a call at work from someone identifying themselves as a police officer. They're asking me to come home due to an incident at the house. I arrive about 30 minutes later and see 3 police cruisers, lights on, several officers milling around my home. My older sister standing next to an officer, talking, and my roommate, who appears to have just come back from out of town, talking to another officer. My husband also is now arriving home from school. A police sergeant walks up to me, asks my name. I let him know who I am. He asked me to follow him over to where my sister is. While following the officer, I notice a few dozen yards away, the friend my sister wanted to go party with parked in her car watching. The officer directs me to where my sister is. I wander over, and immediately my sister starts yelling at me. How could you do that? How could you just leave her like that? What is wrong with you? I stand frozen, not understanding the situation yet. The officer looks at me and asks where I've been. I tell him I was at work. The officer asks if I make it a habit to leave my infant alone at home while I work. It finally dawns on me what's going on. I tell the officer, absolutely not, never. My sister here was hired to be our live-in nanny and was to be watching her tonight. She watched her last night as well. She has the schedule in detail and we have discussed everything at length. My sister immediately shouts, "That's a lie. I had no idea you were going to work. I was leaving with my friend to go out for the night when I heard the baby cry. I had no idea you left her here. I figured you guys had gone out for the night." Our roommate and my husband join us. My roommate says he came home to find my sister on the phone with the police accusing me of abandonment. My sister's friend was in the house telling her to hurry so they wouldn't miss the drink specials at a local bar. My husband goes in the house with an officer, shows him our work schedule on the fridge, my sister's room, and the baby's crib in her room. He then shows him the paper we had her sign with all the agreed to info. Another officer goes over to the car parked down the street and tells the friend to come over. The officer starts to question the friend about the phone call. My sister immediately starts yelling, "She has nothing to do with this. She was here to pick me up when we both heard the baby crying." I tell the officer that this is par for the course with my sister. She made all this up. My sister again starts screaming at the top of her lungs, "This is all a lie. I don't know what she's telling you, but it's a lie. I had no idea the baby was here alone," and starts to fake cry. And just as things seem ridiculous enough, my nephew is brought out crying and telling the officer holding him, "But mommy said it was okay to leave the baby, that auntie would be home soon, and we were going to go out." I started to laugh. I almost bent over laughing as my sister reached for her son, saying, "He doesn't know what he's saying." My nephew said, "Mommy, don't lie. You said we were going to go play." That was awesome. The look on her face and the officers' faces were priceless. My sister had fabricated this ridiculous story and called the police, all so she didn't have to work and could go out drinking. The crib was in her room. The work schedule and the signed paper, plus out of the mouths of babes, my nephew telling his mommy not to lie in front of half a dozen police officers. I was upset, but I was laughing. The officers were upset now too, realizing the situation. I told the officers I wanted my sister off my property. She was not on the lease. They escorted her in the house, had her pack up the few belongings that she came with, which wasn't much, just clothes, hygiene stuff, and a few personal knickknacks. I walked up to my sister with a signed agreement, tore it in half, and handed it to her. I told her that she was never welcome back, and I wanted nothing to do with her ever again. She could go with her friend. She was escorted off the lawn. I told the officers I didn't want to press any charges, She had no money and nowhere to go other than her friend. That was more than enough. The police eventually leave. My husband, roommate, and I go sit in the living room staring at each other. We have no words. We just sit for a while. The next day, husband is off at work, roommate is sleeping in. I take baby to go to a doctor's appointment and the grocery store, then to stop at my dad's place for a brief visit. I left a note on the fridge letting my roommate know where I was. Just as I arrive at my dad's, he jogs down the hallway and says, "Better go home, your roommate just called." It takes me about 15 minutes to get home, and standing in front of the door is my sister, screaming at the top of her lungs with 2 police officers on either side of her. I drive up and get out of my car. My sister immediately tries to rush at me, screaming at me in Italian. The officers stop her. My roommate comes around the backyard, having come out of the back door instead of the front where my sister was. I ask, "What the heck is going on?" Neighbors are now coming out to see what's happening. My roommate called the police because my sister tried to kick in the door, said that we had all of her electronic equipment in there and that this was her house and we illegally removed her. When he wouldn't let her in, she began kicking and pounding on the door and screaming at the top of her lungs. My husband had a very nice stereo set up with a multi-disc CD player, speakers, subwoofers, tuner, several dozen CDs, etc. We had a new large TV with several video game consoles, DVD, VHS players, and a bookshelf full of movies and video games. My sister was attempting to break into the house and steal all of it. My sister was unhinged at this point. She was so incensed that spit was flying away from her mouth when she was screaming. "How dare you do this to me? Those are all my things. You stole everything from me. You are a liar and a thief, turning the police on me. I will get you for this. I'm going to have you evicted. I'm calling Dad. He will have his brother kick you out, and you'll be on the street. Ha 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 ha! On the street, you jerk!" The police ask us if she's on the lease. We tell them no and give them the report from last night. He looks at the report, nods, and says, "Oh, this is that place. Yeah, we heard about this. Is this the same lady that called in the false report last night?" I tell him yes, same person. The officer asks if I would like to trespass her. I tell him absolutely. He turns to her while his partner takes out some papers and starts writing. He gives her the spiel regarding the trespass order. The officer looks at me and I walk over and quietly say, "See that car parked 2 houses down? Yes, that one. Can you issue the driver a trespass order too? That is the other person from last night." The officer waves over the car. They tell my sister if they have one more incident with her, she will be under arrest. She stomps off down the street to her friend's car, literally screaming at the top of her lungs everything you can imagine in English and Italian. We thank the officers and they take off. I talk to my neighbors and apologize for the trouble. Most of my neighbors are elderly and very understanding. A retired Navy officer next door says that he will be happy to keep an eye on the house for us when we aren't home. I thank him profusely. He pats his truck and says, "Your sister is a nut." I agreed. I head back over to Dad's place to visit and go over the last 2 days' events. While baby is inside sleeping, my dad and I go to his garage to do some work on a project car of his. Being the only kid of his who knows how to work on cars, this is our thing. We bust a few knuckles, have a couple of drinks, and just hang out for a while. A couple hours later, we hear a car screech to a stop in front of the house. He has a very long dirt driveway, so the car was still on pavement. Out jumps my sister, red-faced and fuming red. She immediately starts stomping down the driveway, fists balled up. My dad and I are sitting on the edge of the car near the engine, hood up, staring at her. She starts screaming. "Did she tell you she kicked me and your grandson out on the street? Did she tell you she lied to the police about abandoning her daughter? Did she tell you that she called the police on me when I tried to get things she stole from me? I am the victim here, not her. I want her evicted from Uncle's house. I want you to call him now and kick her out. She has no right to do this to me. No right to be here." My dad looks down at me and I shrug. She stops about 30 feet in front of us. She literally starts jumping up and down. "I want her kicked out now, now, now." Seeing a 25-year-old woman jumping up and down, screaming like a 2-year-old was quite the sight. My dad looks at her. My dad can look at you and make your bones freeze. The look of death. My sister immediately stops and says, "No." That was it. Just no. Turns around and starts working on the car again. I smirked at my sister. Enraged, she starts screaming at me again. My dad slowly turns around, takes 2 steps towards her, and in a deep, loud, reverberating voice says, "Basta!" Kinda means enough.
You will not behave in this manner. You will not talk to your sister until you can be civil. Go away now.
You do not ever disobey my dad. My sister, still red-faced, turns around and walks off to the car, gets in. Her friend revs the engine of her very old beat-up sedan, screams, "Forget you both!" and takes off. My dad turns around and says,
Well, how about some pizza?
takes another drink, and goes back to working on the engine. I haven't spoken to my sister since. My daughter is now 27. Make me stand outside in 104-degree heat? I'll stage a revolution. This took place during the first summer of lockdown where I live. Some context for you. My town is basically on the edge of nowhere. We have a medical center for basic stuff, but a full hospital is 30 to 40 minutes in any direction depending on where you choose to go. With that in mind, we get people from a huge surrounding area that go to our town center for tests, simple medical exams, etc. Maybe as many as 50 small communities use our center on a daily basis, so it's constantly busy. The center itself is quite small compared to hospitals in the city. The various clinics and a basic ER take up most of the space, with an area by the front doors for the public to sit in if they're waiting for a ride or something visiting a doctor. It is that waiting area that is the cause for my story today. One day during the first summer of lockdown here, I had to go to the medical center for tests. Some things to know about me. I'm challenged with multiple disabilities. I am legally blind, have significant mobility and balance issues, and a rather severe heart condition. As such, I use a walking frame and travel using the city's provided disabled transports. That particular day, I had finished my tests early and had 45 minutes to wait until my transport was scheduled to return to pick me up. I figured, no problem. I will just sit in the waiting area and, well, wait. I shuffled over to the seats with my walker plainly evident and was confronted by a new sign, "Staff only." Say what now? I looked around at all the empty seats and vacant tables and turned to the clerks at the entrance. Me. Can I please have a seat in the waiting area until my transport comes back? Clerk, coldly.
No, it's staff only. You need to wait outside.
Me. I can't stand for 45 minutes waiting for my transport, gesturing to my plainly apparent walking frame that I was clearly leaning heavily on. Clerk.
Not my problem. There are benches to sit on outside.
Me. The benches are full, and we're supposed to be social distancing, not cuddling up to random strangers on a park bench.
Clerk. If you want, I suppose I could let you take a wheelchair out and sit in that.
Me. How am I to manage a wheelchair and my walking frame at the same time?
Clerk. Again, not my problem. If you want, you can call center management when you get home. Are we done here?
Me. I guess we are done, huh? And went outside to find a spot to wait. Well, I stood outside for the 45 minutes while the sun beat down on what turned out to be 104 degrees Fahrenheit day. As I stood there, I noticed that there was a line of patients growing steadily longer, also standing outside in the heat, waiting to be let into the building. Some looked fit, but let's face it, nobody comes to a medical center because they feel 100%. Most of them looked quite ill, and some were looking pretty faint by the time they got through the doors. By the time my transport arrived, I was badly sunburned, thirsty as heck, exhausted, and feeling more than a bit faint myself. My driver was shocked and insisted on walking me to my front door when he got me home to make sure I was okay. Shout out to all transport drivers, you guys rock. The rest of the day was a complete loss. I spent it drinking water, sleeping, and nursing the burns on my shoulders and face. I was a right mess. The next day, however, I was upset. I had plenty of time to recover and to think, and I kept coming back to the line of patients standing in the heat. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Malicious compliance. The words the clerk so smugly said, "You can call center management when you get home if you want," danced through my sun-baked brain like a mantra. I called center management. What followed was a half-hour conversation with the sweetest lady. She was so nice and so upset when I told her all about what went on the day before. She was especially concerned when she found out about the line of people waiting outside on what turned out to be the hottest day we had that summer. After our talk, the manager promised to look into it and to get back to me. Now, normally that's sort of a brush off, right? Not so with this lady. 2 days later, she called me back. Turned out, she had spent the day before sitting at the clerk's desk observing things that went on. Things like patients being forced to stand in the rain waiting to get into the center, patients being poorly spoken to by the same clerk, and the cherry on top? At one point, a tiny elderly lady tried to sit down in the waiting area, and the same clerk ran over and rudely shoved her aside and snapped, "Staff only," with her boss sitting right there. The manager went over, tore down the signs, apologized to the lady, and helped her to a seat, then took the clerk into her office for a chat. The results: the center was immediately restructured. Staff were moved into an unused gift shop. The waiting room was returned to the public, and best of all, the registry desks were removed so patients no longer had to stand outside waiting to get into the building. I never saw that clerk there again. I know this isn't as exciting as most stories on here, but knowing I was part of making things so much better for so many still makes me happy. Am I the jerk for reminding my husband's friend that I make 3 times his salary? I'm 30, female, and my husband, who's 32, male, has a friend, Mike, who's 36, who fancies himself the Wolf of Wall Street. Mike got some money when his grandpa passed away, $150K, and blew it all very quickly in get-rich-quick schemes, as well as trying out day trading. He's currently working in a call center while still trying to make it big. He has no inheritance money left. The issue is that Mike is really bad at making financial decisions, and so he keeps losing money. But that doesn't stop him from repeating over and over that next year he'll make his first million. He's been saying this for 5 years. I wouldn't mind his attitude as much, except he constantly belittles me and my husband, looking down on us for our car when he doesn't even have one, or saying that smart people work for themselves as a dig to our jobs. He finally made money last week, $2,000, and he came over for dinner. He was on a huge high for making money and was much more arrogant than usual, talking about how he was going to buy a really expensive car and wouldn't be caught dead with the car we own. He then kept saying, "I made $2K in 15 minutes. Nobody else at this table can say that." Why are you friends with this guy? He then proceeded to try to give us financial advice, which consisted of him putting down mine and my husband's jobs. He makes the same amount as my husband and way less than me. I got fed up with his attitude and said, "Mike, we didn't make 2K in 15 minutes, but I do make 100K a year, which is about 3 times what you make, and I never blew 150K, so I really don't think you're in a place to advise on finances." He stormed out and said I was the jerk. My husband thinks I should have been nicer since I know how he is. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Mike? Please let us know. I think the husband's the jerk for not telling Mike to shut his... Am I the jerk for not paying the vet bills after my neighbor's dog ate food I left outside? This week, I, 28 female, hosted a family gathering. The people there were my sister and her family, 4 in total, my brother and his wife, my boyfriend, and mine and his parents. I live relatively out in the country, so it's not exactly common for whole properties to be fenced. Usually it's just fences for animals. Since it was nice out, we ate lunch outside. Some of the food wasn't immediately brought inside after we ate, including some desserts that were mostly chocolate and a bit of fruit. I figured the food would probably be fine being left out for a little bit, and if not, it could just be thrown away. The food was covered too. After we ate, we went down to the small pond that's on my property for a little bit, probably half an hour or 45 minutes. It has a nice dock and a view of the trees and is a great place to spend some time. When we got back up to where the food was left, the neighbor's dog was on the table eating the food and had ripped the covers off. I got my neighbors and they apologized, but asked what the dog had eaten. I told them, and some of the food was toxic to dogs, chocolate, grapes, etc. They started freaking out and rushed their dog to the vet. Yesterday, they contacted me and asked if I would pay the vet bills. Their dog survived, but needed extensive care and had racked up quite a bit in vet bills. I offered to pay a quarter of the bills, but they wanted all of it because the food she ate was mine. I told them if they hadn't let their dog on my property, it wouldn't have eaten my food. They said that it had accidentally gotten out and they didn't mean to, and that I should pay all the bills. I then made a remark about how they should pay for the food the dog ate, but they weren't amused and got more upset. I told them a quarter or nothing, and they're still upset about it and want me to pay more. I did leave the food out though. Am I the jerk for not paying the full cost? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her neighbors? Please let us know. I'm sorry your neighbors are so stupid, but I am glad the doggo is okay. And please don't pay anything for those vet bills. These idiots need to learn to keep their dog off your property. Karen buys a $900 necklace with my money. I'm male, 34, and my wife, who's 30, her birthday was a couple of weeks ago. She was very honest and vocal about what she wanted, and it was an SL buckled bracelet. I bought it for her, and it cost me $300 using my own account. We do not purchase each other's gifts using the joint account. Since money is tight, the gift broke my back, but still, I wanted her to feel appreciated on her birthday. I gave her the bracelet, and she was thrilled, said she admired it, and put it on right away. Later that night, and after the birthday celebration was over, I found out that my wife purchased a $900 necklace using my account. I asked why she bought herself a gift, knowing I already purchased her a gift, and asked why she had used my money. She nervously said she wasn't sure that I was going to get her anything for her birthday, and so she planned ahead and bought the necklace. She said that she used my money because, obviously, the gift is supposed to come from me. I was puzzled as she explained her reasons. I was mad. $900 was a lot to spend on a gift. Besides, I already bought her a gift, so this was unnecessary spending process. I told her since I did bring her the gift she wanted, then she needed to return the alternative gift she bought for herself. She refused and argued that I was being heartless and selfish to make her return her birthday gift. I insisted and told her I'd do it myself if she kept refusing. She said she will just return the $300 gift, but I said no, not the $300 gift that I agreed to pay for, and she should return the $900 gift I never agreed to let her have. She returned it after I pressured her and kept sulking, saying I'm a controlling jerk with no regard for her feelings on her birthday. She got her sister involved, and she ended up calling me a jerk for making money a priority over my wife's happiness. It's been 2 weeks, and she's still cold shouldering me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Divorce exists for a reason, buddy boy. Sounds like you got a little more than you bargained for. I underestimated my mother. I haven't been on Reddit lately due to a personal matter with my girlfriend. Her only remaining grandparent was hospitalized. We left town together and drove a couple hundred miles to go and support my girlfriend's family. Because girlfriend and I have been together for so long, I'm rather close to her family. Her parents often joke that one day I'll be their son-in-law whether I like it or not. But while my girlfriend and I were away, my mother found out where my sister and future brother-in-law live now. I kind of expected that to happen at some point, but I figured after saying we were disowned that maybe my mother would leave us alone. But evil Mama Bear will always be evil Mama Bear, won't she? While hundreds of miles away from home, I got warning from my cousin that visits my mother that she'd found out some time ago where my sister was living by spotting her at the local supermarket and following her car home. Apparently, evil Mama Bear just didn't say anything to anyone that she knew for a while, but let it slip to my cousin that she knew and was giddy about getting her daughter back, as she supposedly put it. My sister is a creature of habit and tends to go shopping at the same places and times weekly, and our mother knows that, so her tracking down my sister this way isn't all that surprising. But sister never goes out without her fiance, future brother-in-law, anymore, and he told me he's always packing a taser now. Apparently, evil Mama Bear waited till I wasn't around to make her move. She's craftier than I gave her credit for. I phoned my sister that I had heard from our cousin that evil Mama Bear knows where she lives and to be ready. And the following day, evil Mama Bear showed up at Sis's front door with flowers and, of all things, a holy Bible. She rang the doorbell several times and sister did not answer. So she resorted to crying and banging on the door to make a scene. And finally, future brother-in-law answered, and he had both a wireless camera nearby on a table and a police-style body cam that I gave them to record with just in case this happened. As soon as future brother-in-law opened the door, evil Mama Bear threw her arms out like she was gonna hug and kiss him, only to pull back as soon as she realized my sister wasn't the one to open the door. She looked completely stunned to be face-to-face with future brother-in-law for a moment before finally speaking. "I'm looking for my daughter. Please let me see her." Future brother-in-law: "I don't think so. Whatever you want to say, you can say from here." Mom: "Please, I have to talk to her now. This is all a huge misunderstanding." Sister emerges from another room. "What I understand, Mom, is that you are a jerk who hates my fiance, demanded I don't have my baby, and then tried to attack me. Then you disown me, saying you no longer have any kids. What about that was a misunderstanding? Mom holds up the Bible. Please, I wasn't myself then. I've done a lot of soul searching and gone to church. I found God. Come home. You can live in my bedroom. I'll sleep in the basement. I'll even let your boyfriend move back in too. Total lie. My cousin would have told me if she was going to church. She can't stand church. She'd probably start burning if she stepped into one. And from what my cousin also told me, she's never once stopped referring to future brother-in-law with rude names. Sister. Oh, what about how you referred to all of us as rude names and then broke Craggle's windows with rocks that had more mean names written all over them? Mom. I did what I had to do. Craggle ruins everything. Sister. Craggle didn't ruin anything. He just finally opened my eyes to what kind of a person you really are and what person I let you turn me into, mother. Mom. Don't you mean mummy? Sis. No, I mean mother. I'm never calling you mummy again. Mom starts bawling and holding up her Bible again. But the Bible says to honor thy father and thy mother. Future brother-in-law. Yeah, and it also says not to provoke your kids to wrath. I've never read the Bible, and even I know that. Have you even read it? Or did you just buy it along with those flowers on the way here? Mom. But the Bible says, future brother-in-law, not to lie, steal, commit adultery, or bear false witness? How many of those are you guilty of, huh? Sister. All of them. Mom throws the flowers and Bible onto the ground. It's Craggle, isn't it? He's turned you against me. Everyone is against me, said while stamping her foot. Sis. Craggle didn't do anything to do that. It was all you. Then, I kid you not, my mother let out a loud noise that sounded a lot like a and then proceeded to lunge at Sis. But future brother-in-law intercepted her and had her pinned on the floor in seconds pretty easily as she's not very big. Brother-in-law. Honey, call the police. Mom. You can't do this to me. I am your mother. You are supposed to love me. From there on, it was just some repetitive nonsense while future brother-in-law held her down until the police arrived. Predictably, as soon as they showed up, evil Mama Bear started screaming. Help! This jerk is attacking me for just wanting to see my daughter. He's brainwashed her. Do something. Sis, I do not want her near me. Evil Mama Bear struggled a bit more and the cops had to restrain her. She ended up screaming at them that they were all names too, which got her a shiny pair of bracelets and a frog march into a police car. The police got a copy of the camera footage and then carted evil Mama Bear off to jail. Still waiting to find out how that one is going to go down. Future brother-in-law has mentioned possibly wanting to go after her for crime because of the names that she used. Sister threw the flowers into the trash, and future brother-in-law dropped the Bible that she had brought with her into a church donation bin. He said it looked like the kind you'd find in a department bookstore rack anyway. I still can't do a lot because I'm not at home, but sister and future brother-in-law said they are gonna file for their own restraining order soon. Respect the schedule, kiddo. This story took place about 2 years ago, over the span of about 2 weeks. I work in a factory on an assembly line that makes car parts, and my boss at the time was stingy about meeting quotas and people respecting the schedule down to the minute. Let's call him Mike. Now for some setup. We'd clock in at 7 a.m., work 8 hours, and clock out at 3 p.m., breaks included. We had to do some paperwork both before we started production and after we ended it. Mike was up in our faces from day one about needing to be in at least 15 minutes before our shift started so we could clear the paperwork. The bus dropped us off at 6:45 a.m., and we needed to go to the lockers to change, so that was impossible. Begin production at exactly 7 a.m. and stop 5 minutes before 3 p.m., so we'd have just enough time to finish ending paperwork. But he, of course, had never done that paperwork himself and either didn't know or didn't care that it actually took closer to 20 minutes. Now, that paperwork was essential. If a shift didn't do it, they'd get chewed out by quality control. And combined with the fact that Mike was strict about the quota, 8 hours just weren't enough to do everything they wanted. It was closer to 9 hours. But I said, fine, I'll let it slide, and started coming to work with my own car just so I could be early and also stay 15 to 20 minutes over to finish up. I wasn't reimbursed for gas, I wasn't paid overtime for coming early and leaving late, but it stopped the near daily arguments with Mike, so I relented. Fast forward about 6 months, and me and my team had a solid routine in place. Everything went smoothly. We mostly met the quota, the paperwork was always done, until one day it wasn't. One Monday morning, my car had trouble starting up, and I'd already missed the bus, so I called Mike to let him know I'd be running a bit late. I figured, hey, he noticed I try my best every day, and he had let it slide this one time. How wrong I was. Mike was polite over the phone, but he chewed me out the moment I got in. I was 2 minutes late. I made it in at 7:02.
Next time you're late, don't bother coming in. I don't need lazy people working here.
That was just one of the nasty things he said, but it's the one I remember the most clearly because it blew me away. He used me being late to guilt trip me into working copious amounts of overtime that week, and I accepted just to appease him. I wasn't a very confrontational person, so I always took the path of least resistance in an argument. And long story short, the overtime left me so drained that I overslept Friday and was late again. This time, I made it in at 7:03.
I should fire you right now for this. I already gave you a warning Monday,
was the first thing he said to me when I came in. Sorry, I was just too tired. I foolishly tried to defend myself. It won't happen again. Plus, I've been coming in early and leaving late for months. Can't you cut me some slack for 3 minutes?
I didn't ask you to do that,
he answered, which was a lie since he expressly asked us to come in 15 minutes early every day.
Your shift starts exactly at 7 a.m. and ends exactly at 3 p.m., not a minute earlier or later.
Got it, boss, I said, all giddy inside. The next week, I came in at exactly 7 a.m. and left at exactly 3 p.m. Production started at 7:20 and ended at 2:40 so I could do the paperwork. That, of course, affected our quota, and it didn't take Mike long to notice. We argued over that as well, obviously, but I reminded him of what he said earlier and it actually shut him up. He tried to get me to relent and start coming in 15 minutes early and leaving 20 minutes late again, but I just laughed and said, nope, not my problem. But this story doesn't end here, because of course, Mike tried to pull more crap with me. He tried to get me fired for this, but it didn't fly with HR. His write-ups just bounced when he sent them further up the command chain. But he did notice something that I didn't. I clocked in a few seconds after 7. We used an electronic log with individual access cards. So he passed a new rule that he planned to enforce retroactively. Only full hours are paid. If you clock in or out too late or early, the hour gets cut. He came to confront me about that the following Monday, a few minutes after I got in.
Hey, Exo, I noticed that you clocked in too late every day last week, so we'll have to cut 5 hours from your payroll,
he said with a smug grin. This took me aback a bit, because I'd never heard of that rule before, and I saw others clocking in at the same time as me, so I just stared at him in shock. He clearly derived pleasure from this, thinking he finally bested me. I'd have my pay cut for my insolence.
I also checked and found that you clocked in 5 seconds too late right now,
he continued. So this hour will also go unpaid? I asked.
Yup,
he said, nearly ecstatic by that point. Awesome, I answered with a grin. See you at 8. I turned and left, grabbed a coffee and a sandwich, and I waited in the break room. Mike came after me 10 minutes later and finally apologized, asking me to return to work. So you'll pay me for this hour? I asked.
No, you clocked in too late.
Then I'm not obliged to work it, I said.
Fine, it will be paid. Now get back to work,
he relented. And the 5 hours from last week? I demanded. Because if not, I'll leave 5 hours early today to compensate. He looked like he was about to lose it, but he accepted. I got back to work, those hours were paid, and we returned to our normal routine of me coming in early and leaving a bit late. And Mike never bothered me for being late a few minutes ever again, though it was a rare occurrence. For the 2 years I worked under him, until he left, I still worked there. I was late maybe 3 more times, but he couldn't stand my guts and actively avoided me after that point. Am I the jerk for telling my entire family that my cousin's child-free wedding isn't 100% child-free? I need some insight to see if I'm in the wrong, because I really don't feel like I am. I, 32 female, just received an invite to my cousin Alex's 30 female wedding. It stated on the invite that the wedding was child-free. I'm not new to child-free weddings, but what has me frustrated is the fact that there will be kids at the wedding. Alex plans on having her and her future husband, 33 male, his nieces and nephews at their wedding. I overheard her asking her sister if her niece could be the flower girl at a family get-together. This confused me because child-free means no kids, so I called Alex and asked. I told her and said that if her nieces and nephews are going, then my daughter, who's 5, similar in age to her nieces and nephews, should be allowed to go too. Alex said that only those in the bridal party are the exception and that she wants her nieces and nephews at the wedding. When I asked why they could come and not my daughter, she said it's because she knows her nieces and nephews are well behaved, so there will be no issues. She also knows her sister and brother-in-law's parents very well, and to top it off, she is a teacher who wants a day where she doesn't have to deal with the kids of others. She also said she is closer to them. I told her that her reasoning was ridiculous because child-free means no kids, including her nieces and nephews. Alex told me I was more than welcome to decline the invite, so I did. I ended up venting to my mother, married to Alex's dad's brother, and while she didn't agree with Alex, she said she could understand her feelings. However, my dad didn't like it and called her dad, my Uncle Mitch, asking why my daughter could not come. Mitch told my dad that it is Alex's wedding and she can do as she pleases. He also said cousins are not the same as nieces and nephews, especially since they are in the bridal party. My dad said since Mitch is paying for it, that he should talk Alex into allowing kids, but he declined and said that he and my aunt don't believe paying for the wedding gives them a say, and even if it did, he agrees with Alex. This upset my dad since he then told other family members. Now several members are upset that Alex and her future husband's nieces and nephews will be there, but no one else is allowed to bring their kids. We have a fairly large family and we all watch each other's kids, so finding childcare will be difficult. Most of the family say it's Alex's wedding and her reasons make sense, but I and some of my cousins are refusing to attend. Alex doesn't seem to care one way or the other. One cousin told Alex she was bringing her kid anyway, to which Alex said, "Make sure you wear sneakers so it's easier on your feet as you're escorted back to your car," which is how we found out she's having the security guard from her school checking the guest list and that he knows to not let any kids in. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Alex? Please let us know. Bruh. Sir, you're in the backblast area. This happened 20 years ago as I went through basic training in AIT for the Army in 2001. Man, writing this makes me feel old. The summer of 2001, I graduated high school and enrolled in the Army. I shipped off 2 days prior to my 19th birthday. I arrived at Fort Knox, Kentucky on my birthday, and what a pleasant present that was. Drill sergeants can be malicious compliance animals, as they are in the epitome of by the book and doing what you are told. Fast forward, we are in our BRM phase, basic rifle marksmanship, and after the depressing start of going into heck on my birthday, basic training actually started being fun, and BRM was no exception. Being raised in a farm, I already had the basic concepts down, and though I was not a natural, I was pretty decent when it came to shooting the pop-up targets. Qualification day came, and with basic training being one big competition between everything from squad members to platoons and even companies, the drill sergeant decided to sweeten the pot and give the 2 top qualifiers the prize of shooting off an AT-4. Think bazooka, but smaller. We were all excited and did our best. Several people shot 40 for 40, and they had a shoot-off for the top 2. I only managed 32 out of 40, but was still happy. The 2 winners are declared, and we gather around for safety brief and instruction block on how to use these. Before firing, you are told to yell, "Backblast area clear," and that tells anyone in the wake of the concussion of the blast that they should move to the left or right so they are out of the danger zone. The 2 winners get their AT-4, get in position to fire. The first guy goes and screams his warning and aims at the old tank 400 yards away. Big boom! Men turn into kids and holler and cheer. Second winner steps up and gets prepared, looks back, yells his warning, and stops. A platoon leader had come up and was standing about 20 feet directly behind the soldier getting ready. The drill sergeant asks the platoon leader to move to the left or right, but he doesn't. He walks back about 30 yards or so and nods his head, indicating that he's good. The drill sergeant doesn't move and yells, "Sir, that's not far enough." He tells the platoon leader that the effective backblast area of an AT-4 is 100 yards and he should move. The platoon leader did not like being given instructions by an enlisted soldier, and since the platoon leader was fresh out of officer training, thought he knew everything. Replies back that he did not need to be retaught what he already had learned and to continue on with the exercise. To which the drill sergeant nodded and looked at the soldier and said, "Carry on." The soldier, now looking very timid and scared, is hesitant and pauses. The drill sergeant approaches and, loud enough for everyone to hear, says,
Did you not just hear the lawful order your platoon leader gave you? Carry on, soldier.
The guy swallows, yells, "Back blast area clear," one more time, checks his rear, shrugs, aims at the old tank, and fires. The platoon leader was knocked flat on his back as the concussion wave hit him. He got up uneasily and looked up. Every bit of mucus this apparently sick platoon leader had in his face was oozing out of him by now. The drill sergeant gives the all clear, nods at the platoon leader, and grins. Platoon leader burns holes in the drill sergeant with his eyes, but can barely keep standing as he hobbles over to the medic to get checked out. Next level version of read the menu. Couple came in the other day. Wife was nice, husband was a jerk. First thing he does when I greet him is toss the menu on the table and angrily point at the brunch section.
What is this? No one can read this. Look at how tiny this print is. What is this, huh? Specials or what?
Sir, that's the brunch menu. We serve brunch from 10 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays, so we're on our lunch and dinner menu, which is right over here for you. Gestures to the menu.
No normal person can read this menu.
I'm sorry, sir. We don't have a more accessible physical menu available. But if you use these QR codes, you can pull it up on your smartphone and magnify it to your comfort level.
No, I should not have to do that. Tell me, what are your recommendations?
Gives recommendations with great detail.
No, I do not want those. They sound messy, and I don't like that kind of food.
I give different recommendations with great detail.
No, I don't want it.
So, what kind of food were you in the mood for?
I want fish or something.
I give fish recommendations in great detail. At this point, I'd basically read the entire menu to him as we don't have a large amount of items.
Give me some time. I'll look at the menu on my phone.
I come back a few minutes later to see him seething angrily at his phone. I ask if he has any more questions. He asks about several dishes until we've gone through the entire menu. At this point, I already let my managers know about the situation. I had time because we weren't busy, so I tried helping the man find something he'd like, with some modifications. Again, we've gone through the entire menu together. I basically read the whole darn thing to him like a bedtime story.
I want a ribeye, medium rare, with vegetables.
Sir, we do not carry steaks.
Do you have filet mignon or something?
Sir, as I said, we do not carry steaks.
Really?
He gives a stink face and that stupid squinty grin that jerky entitled customers always make. Sir, we've gone through the whole menu.
Then I want mahi-mahi.
So, you want our mahi-mahi tacos?
No, I want a full mahi-mahi with potatoes or something.
I can offer you our salmon. It comes on a bed of butternut squash puree and grilled Brussels sprouts, corn, asparagus, and fingerling tomatoes. Makes the stupid squinty grin of contempt again.
You can get salmon anywhere. I don't want that.
Okay, well then I'm not sure what I can do for you.
Just get me the mahi-mahi tacos.
Those come breaded. We can make them grilled for you if you'd like.
No, just have them come normally.
Long story cut short, he said he liked the tacos as he was eating them. Then when he was done eating all of them, he told me that they were so disgusting he wouldn't feed them to his dog. He says he hates breaded fish. Weird, because I told him that it was breaded and offered an alternative. I asked him why he said they were good earlier, and he said he's not a liar and he's not trying to get anything for free. And I said, yup, you're not getting it for free regardless. You ate it. Tip, 10%. Wish I had seen it before he left so I could have scribbled out the tip in front of him. I don't need your money. Forget you, illiterate jerk. Influencer gets mad when we say no, tries to ruin us, and it backfires. This happened 3 years ago before lockdown, and you need to know a few things first. Our sanctuary was only 2 years old at the time. It is out in the country, not too far from town, but far enough that the town is no bother to us. Now at this time, Jax actually went viral for a few weeks. Basic viral video. We had an animal that did something cute with Jax that was caught on camera. Upload to the sanctuary Twitter, and boom, viral. So our sanctuary raises in popularity. Jax even got a bunch of fangirls. Can't blame them. Cute guy plus cute animals, hard not to love. Anyways, this resulted in a lot of influencers contacting us looking to work with us. Now, not all were bad. Some actually wanted to help, but some were just plain crazy. Like this one, we will call her Ella, fake name. Ella originally contacted us through an email asking to meet in person. After some checking, we agreed. This is how the meeting went. Ella comes into our office. Jax: "Hey, how can I help you?" Side note, Jax was in his sanctuary uniform because the guy literally never takes it off. Ella: "I'm here to talk to the owner." Just to note, Ella seemed to be turning her nose up to Jax. Jax: "That would be me. You must be Ella." "Yeah." She seemed mad that Jax didn't immediately recognize her. Jax: "Well, let's go back into the meeting room." Ella follows Jax and I back. Jax: "So, I was told you want to help out the sanctuary." "Yeah, I have an offer that benefits you both." "Okay, let's hear it." "Well, I'm getting married, and I would like to take my wedding photos here, posing with some of the animals." Jax: "Huh?" Ella: "As you likely already know from my channel, I'm an animal lover, and I think this would be a great place for my wedding photos." Jax: "I'm sorry, but no, we can't do that. I do not allow people in the sanctuary with the animals. It stresses them out." "It wouldn't be a lot of us, just me and my fiance and my bridesmaids, my 2 kids and the cameraman." Jax: "I'm sorry, but the answer is still no." "We won't be long, a few hours at the most." "No, I'm sorry." "This is ridiculous. I am trying to help you." Jax: "By stressing out my animals? Yeah, sure." "You know who I am, right?" Jax: "No, I don't actually. One of a million wannabe celebrities, I'm guessing." "Forget you. You're going to regret this. One video, I can have hundreds of thousands of loyal fans after you." Jax: "Oh, I'm so scared. I think you need to leave." "Forget you." She leaves. 2 days later, she actually posted a video. And the best part, she literally told the story, word for word, what happened. She didn't change anything to make herself look better, just the complete truth. Like, she actually thought she was right in this situation. Well, her fans weren't happy and started calling her out as entitled and full of herself for wanting to risk the safety of the animals and thinking she was more important. She lost a few thousand followers and was called out on a few lesser-known drama channels. She issued an apology, but was also called out for that because people thought she made too many excuses throughout it. She has kids and wanted them in the photos too. Forgot to mention this. People keep asking for names. This is why it's not going to happen. 1, it's against the rules. 2, as I said, we get a lot of influencers. Some we do and don't work with. I will not be revealing any names, as I don't want to risk bringing trouble to the sanctuary. People will sue over anything nowadays. Am I the jerk for not giving up my man cave to accommodate my mother-in-law? My wife and I got married 4 years ago. She had 2 kids from a previous relationship, now 8 and 10, that she has full custody of. Their dad is not much of a figure in their lives. I inherited my parents' house when they passed about a decade ago, and since my wife and her kids were living in an apartment, we decided it would be easiest if they moved into my house after we got married. The kids now have their own rooms, there's a yard for them to play in, we got a dog. It's been really nice. About a year ago, my wife's dad got sick and passed. It's been hard on a lot of her family members, but especially her mom. A few months ago, my wife brought up the idea of having her mom move in with us so that she wouldn't be alone. I was very hesitant since her mom has her own health issues and adding another adult to the house changes the dynamics of the household completely. After a lot of discussion and pressure from my wife, I finally opened up to the idea, but there are still roadblocks. The biggest being that we do not have a spare bedroom for mother-in-law. My wife's idea is to make the basement a kind of mother-in-law suite. However, I've spent the last decade turning the basement into my man cave. Think bar, pool table, poker table, big screen TVs, etc. I did a lot of the work myself, and I'm pretty proud of it. I told my wife that it's pretty much a non-starter for me to give up that space, as it's something I've been working on for a long time, since before I even met her. My solution is to have the kids go back to sharing a room and mother-in-law gets the other bedroom. My wife said that her kids have gotten used to having their own space, and she won't force them to give that up. I asked her why it's okay for me to have to give up my space, but not anyone else. I told her I'm the one who is gaining nothing from having mother-in-law moving in. Mother-in-law would get to be around family. My wife gets her mom close, kids get their grandma, and I would have to give up something that I worked long and hard for. Doesn't exactly sound like a sweet deal for me. She called me a selfish jerk and told me that I'm being ridiculous and stubborn. She told me that this is now her house too, and she's not going to make her kids sacrifice their space when we have a perfectly good space that mother-in-law could use. I told her that the basement is the one place in the house that I do not want changed under any circumstances, no exceptions. We've been fighting about this for weeks, with neither of us willing to budge. My wife is getting more and more hostile towards me, and our relationship is suffering. Do I just need to bite the bullet and give up my space? I think I'm already giving up a lot by allowing mother-in-law to move in with us, but am I being a jerk about this? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If I tried to get Reddit boy to do something like this, my entitled butt would be out on the street.
You got that right. My niece has been getting paid to spy on me. I broke up with my ex after I found out I was pregnant because of how he behaved when I told him. I was living with him at the time, so I moved in with my brother and his family until I could find my own place. My pregnancy has been extremely rough, and my ex wouldn't leave me alone, so my sister-in-law insisted I stay with them for the duration of my pregnancy so that they could make sure I was okay. My brother has a 15-year-old daughter called Amelia. We're very close since I used to babysit her all the time when she was younger. My sister-in-law found out that Amelia has been sending my ex information about me since I moved in with them. When I asked Amelia why she would do something like that, she started crying and said she did it because she overheard me telling her parents that I miss my ex, and that when he first asked for her help, he said the same thing to her, and that he was just worried about me and the baby, so she thought she was helping us. My brother was upset and yelled at her for what she did, and made sure she showed us her phone to see what she had sent to him. From the messages, we found out that she was giving him information, pictures, and videos of me in exchange for money. My brother ended up making her give me all of the money she made from spying on me and grounded her. A few days later, it was just me and her home. She came up to me and begged me to give her the money back because she was saving to take these expensive art classes that her parents couldn't afford. She kept saying she was sorry and that she didn't do any of this to hurt me. I ended up telling her I wouldn't give her the money back, which made her cry again. I did confront my ex about it, but he was not apologetic at all and told me I should have let her keep the money since she was just a kid and this was all of his doing, not hers. He also said he wouldn't have had to resort to this if I had just spoken to him myself like an adult. Am I the jerk? A wild Karen gets banned from a hardware store and I get free food. This happened in Australia a while ago. This occurred just before our first lockdown, and there were mandatory requirements when shopping at retail stores. For context, in high school and all throughout university, college for you Americans, I worked at a mom-and-pop hardware store, so I know my way around hardware. Please note that in our big box hardware stores, there isn't much customer service. Most staff are there to check on stock levels, stock shelves, and attend the cash register. The old warhorses, staff, are always occupied helping people, but they are in short supply. So it's a Saturday and I need some plumbing supplies. I'm in one of the most intimidating aisles for a lot of people. It's got all the copper, tap, and toilet fittings. I've got all the items I need, and I've been there a good 20 minutes. I can see an older gentleman struggling and trying to work out what he needs. I catch his eye and he waves me over enthusiastically. I grab what he needs for a leaky cistern and instruct him on how to install it. He thanks me and he leaves. As I'm about to leave, another old gentleman waves at me and asks me for help. I show him a direct replacement for his tap washes, but then proceed to show him a ceramic fitting that basically makes sure he never has to replace washes again. He balks at the price, but I convince him to get it. Once a salesman, always a salesman. Plus, he gets a senior discount. As I'm about to leave with the gentleman, a wild Karen appears from behind me, silent as a mouse. But mousy she is not. She's dumpy, she's middle-aged, big bushy brown hair, and face that's caked in makeup, screeching at me.
Oi, you! I want these items.
As I turn, she shoves a list in my face. Now, if she had smiled at me and asked politely, I would have been happy to help her. But forget that noise. I smile and politely decline. Sorry, I don't work here, indicating my clothes. I've got a blue singlet on, blue cargo shorts, pockets full with plumbing products. Staff wear red and green. So I turn and proceed to leave. Karen reaches out her claw-like hand and tries to turn me towards her, but I slip out of her grasp.
You helped him?
Indicating the old fella still standing next to me.
You work here. Don't lie to me,
she screams. Ma'am, I don't work here. I attempt my best withering gaze. I'll let the counter know you need help and they will send someone along. I make a hasty retreat with the old gentleman. Karen's hot on my tail, screaming at the top of her lungs. calling me some really inappropriate names and saying that I'm a jerk, besides other things. I've ignored her, and I think this has infuriated her even more. She tried a couple of times to get a hold of me, but I've struggled it off, once of which she loses her footing and trips. This enables me to get the heck out of Dodge. I can hear her lumbering along on my heels, screeching like a velociraptor. A member of staff, let's call her S, intercepts Karen and asks her to stop screaming. Karen points to me and starts ranting about me, calling me names, making up a story about me being rude and assaulting her. Clearly, as soon as she says assault, the situation has now escalated and she's in for a very big surprise. S turns to me and rolls her eyes. She knows this is going to be a long one. I do too. I turn to the old gentleman and tell him to get in line because this is going to be a while. He tells me it's fine. I'll need a witness. My heart bursts a little. So security gets called. I have a quick conversation with the manager and relay the events that have unfolded. The old man relays the same thing. I also indicate that there are multiple security cameras around the place. I ask the manager if she can remind Karen that there are multiple security cameras around. Police get called anyways, and unlucky for her, no time to recant, there is already a patrol car in the parking lot. They just had lunch. They isolate us, me, the old fellow, and Karen, and do a quick interview. So I'm chilling in the office, 60-ish minutes. Officers come in and have reviewed the tapes and ask if I want to press any charges. I declined and they let me go. Manager is waiting for me and walks me to the checkout. Lets me know Karen is getting a lifetime ban. Didn't know they even did that. I pay for my plumbing supplies with a trade discount. As I'm walking to the exit, I see old fella sitting on the bench. He gets up and asks me if I want a sausage. We have a good laugh over sausage with onions and a Coke. I offer to come over and fit the tap washes for him, and we organize a time for tomorrow morning for me to drop by. He actually only lives a street away from me. As I'm getting in my car, Karen emerges with the cops and the manager. She looks distressed, at least she's not in cuffs. I know she's not got many options, so I drive by as she's talking to someone on the phone and wind down my window. Hey, see across the road, the sign that says the name of the store? They're a trade plumbing supplies store. If you go there and don't be a jerk, they will have everything on your list. Yes, sir. About 15 years ago, I was in the Army, and I had what we'll call a very unique skill set. There were several people in my unit with that specific skill set, but for some odd reason, all of the hot 20 to 26-year-old ladies got Monday through Thursday shifts and had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, while guys like me got Thursday through Monday night shift, despite having seniority over some of the ladies in both rank and time on mission. To make things worse, administrative staff like our commanding officer and platoon sergeant, bosses, worked Monday through Friday and weren't willing to budge on us being active during their work hours. This meant that quarterly training, like PowerPoints we had to watch for harassment, typically occurred both on my day off and in the middle of my sleep time. Given that I worked 16-hour shifts and the round trip to base was an hour, I was perpetually sleep deprived. Even if I got off of work on time and went straight home, I could get optimistically 6 hours of sleep per day between driving, eating, and showering. This went on for years over my objections. I literally went nearly 2 years without a day off concurrently with my wife, a day worker. Interestingly, the Army did a study demonstrating that after around 18 hours of consciousness, you make the same number of stupid and careless mistakes as if you were legally intoxicated. Sadly, no one told my platoon sergeant, aka my boss. He decided that sleep deprivation didn't matter. In fact, one day when I was transitioning from a junior enlisted, technically a specialist, but if you're not familiar with Army ranks, think private, to an NCO, sergeant, my platoon sergeant decided I needed some NCO responsibilities. Reasonable. We were having a range day. We had to qualify annually, and we needed a duty driver to shuttle soldiers back and forth from the barracks. I was voluntold. Suffice it to say that I was on loan to a certain agency, and I needed to put in an ops release to miss work. It was rejected due to staffing issues. At the time, there was no one else available that could do a certain thing that I could do. I told my platoon sergeant, and he informed me that the ops release was a courtesy. I was going, and it would only take 8 to 10 hours. But Sergeant, I tried to explain, I worked 16 hours straight leading up to the start of this driving, and I'd have to work another 14 straight hours at the end of it. On top of that, as driver, I'd be driving soldiers down winding roads I'm not familiar with and a van bigger than anything I've ever driven before while half asleep. Then, at the end of what would be a 40-hour shift, I'd need to drive 30 minutes to get home. Does that seem safe?
Safe? Specialist, do you think the soldiers overseas are safe right now?
As I said, about 15 years ago. Well, no, but at least they're getting hazard pay.
You're dismissed, Specialist.
So, what could I do? I only fell asleep twice while driving, and both times were at stoplights. I also made every single passenger aware of my sleep situation. Keep in mind, I was already sleep deprived coming into this, so they made sure to chat with me, bring me coffee, and do other things that decreased their chances of getting hurt that day. Around hour 38 of this, around 40-hour shift, an important person swung by my place of duty to check on something. I was literally standing up, leaning against a cubicle, eyes basically asleep, with 4 empty quad coffees. If Starbucks had a size above venti, it would be quad. Sitting on my desk, per tradition, there was an NCO with the officer. I got chewed out backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down, and in dimensions I was not hitherto aware of. By military protocol, the NCO beside the angry officer did the chewing out. He threatened me with the actual dereliction of duty charges as well. This ended with,
"Now explain to me, Specialist, why on God's green earth you think it's okay to sleep on duty?"
So I explained to him that I was literally semi-conscious on my feet. I'd drunk so much coffee, I'd started having heart palpitations and decided to stop, and that it was hour 38 on duty and I was simply at my limits. I cannot stress enough that important people cared about what I was doing. A lot. Really important people. At this point, the officer stepped in. "You've been doing this for 38 straight hours?" So I explained to her how I'd had to drive a van around during my sleep time, and this important mission had informed my unit that I was irreplaceable. But my unit decided it was crucial that, specifically the guy with the irreplaceable skill set who was working shift, be the duty driver that day. I further explained how this wasn't that uncommon. I couldn't even remember the last time I had had a week where I was allowed to sleep during my sleep time for the entire week uninterrupted. The number of silly things that I had to do instead of sleeping was mind-boggling. "Who is your commissioning officer?" I tried not to smile and told her. "Carry on, Specialist." Needless to say, by lunchtime, aka the equivalent of maybe 1 a.m. for me, I got a phone call. "Report to the platoon sergeant's office right now." I sighed. To say that I was sleepy was something of an understatement. And keep in mind, I got home around 8 a.m. and had to work again around 4 p.m. The round trip to base alone would take an hour, plus I had to get dressed, be presentable, and deal with their nonsense. Then undressed again afterwards, then dressed again and drive back.
"Please explain to me why the command sergeant major just chewed me out over our in-house scheduling decisions."
So I told him what happened.
"You told them that?"
Should I have lied to my mission commander about my level of readiness, Sergeant? He turned red, like Santa's cheeks. Not a Norse berserker. No berserker-like traits at all. Nope, I took a totally professional step backwards. He was about 6'2" and 250 pounds of NCO. And I felt like I was hogging all of his oxygen.
"Get out!"
So I did. It came down from on high that our unit was to have 2 quarterly training days henceforth. No more waking us shift workers up 1 to 2 times per week, every week for administrative crap, period. All missions were informed that our soldiers would be doing one of the 2 training days, pick one. Happy ending, right? Yeah, that's never how it works in the military when you get someone above you in trouble. What's the nastiest, stupidest duty you can imagine giving someone that was stateside in a strategic unit? The urinalysis guy. For those of you that don't know, it's his duty to plan and execute urinalysis. This requires literally monitoring your fellow soldiers because there's a variety of products that can fool the urinalysis, and the only way to, you know what, just trust me, it's nasty. Fortunately, there was a loophole. You see, the powers that be are aware of the good old boys system that develops sometimes in the army, and it's really, really important that the guys with weapons aren't on anything. As a result, per regs, as they existed at that time, and maybe even now, if the urinalysis guy calls a urinalysis, it takes a full bird colonel to cancel it. That's 1 step down from a general. That's right, when the urinalysis guy decides it's time for the monthly urinalysis, wake up, get in uniform, drive to where he says it's happening, and God help you if you've got alcohol or something in your system. To make matters worse, for them, a friend of mine, let's call him Kroger, had been punished for having alcohol in his system during one of their urinalysis. It was on his day off because he was a shift worker, and it was during hours that were duty hours to the day workers, but off duty for us. I had about a year left, no intention of re-enlisting, and my unit had already been slapped down by angry people for messing with me. Let's do this. Malicious compliance time. Imagine this. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday on a long weekend. Long for them, not me. You see, shift workers didn't get holidays off unless we took leave, and I needed mine for family time, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, because without it, I'd have been working every single holiday. The mission must go on after all. Now, anyone that's ever seen an army movie knows that Joes like booze, and anyone that's ever had to deal with a urinalysis knows that they can detect alcohol. Mind you, being a urinalysis guy is a big deal. You're on legal orders and everything, entered into Big Army's database. Between the time I began the formal process of calling a urinalysis and the time I would have had them coming in, around 3 a.m. on their days off, since they had established the precedent that soldiers don't get days off whenever we complained about losing sleep to stuff like this, my orders vanished. To this day, I don't know how they did it. I suspect that our CO or some other bigwigs were at a party or something and realized that they were about to have to explain to a full bird colonel how half of their unit popped hot on a urinalysis, which would have legally required, that colonel having a one-on-one chat with me about why I chose that time and perhaps a discussion about how the unit was being run. Yeah, they never gave me another duty the entire time I had left in the Army. I never had issue with another leave request, and they generally just left me alone. At the time, I thought it was because I'd made my point that I was sick of their crap, but looking back, I wonder who would have come up positive for what specific things during that surprise urinalysis, such that they were able to rescind my big Army orders in less than 1 day and in the middle of the night at that. Neighbor thinks he's entitled to take our fence down. I rent a house with my sister and brother-in-law, as well as my hubby and kids. At the time of this, I only had the one kid, and it's only my sister and I in this story. The neighbor isn't so much of a neighbor, but a guy who bought the house next door, tore it down, and built 2 of those skinny houses. I can't remember what they're called. Property investors, developers, I have no idea. It was summer, so my sister and I were out in our backyard with my daughter playing around when this guy pops his head over the fence and asks if we can talk. I don't like talking to people, so my sister went up to him to see what was up. Guy:
Hey, I'm so-and-so. Do you live here?
Sister: Yes, we do.
Great. I own these 2 houses next door, and I'm trying to get them ready to put on the market. I have guys coming to build a fence, and I was hoping you'd be okay with me having them rebuild this side of your fence as well. I'll cover the costs of everything.
Sister: That sounds great, but unfortunately, we don't own the place, we rent, so you'll have to call my landlord. I can give you his info. Guy, looking slightly frustrated:
Okay.
My sister gives him our landlord's number and he leaves. We send off a quick text to our landlord to let him know what happened and that someone would be calling him about the fence. Landlord was game, as he didn't have to pay for anything, but had a feeling the guy would want to change the fence style, so definitely wanted to talk to him about it. A little over a week later, it was morning. I let my dogs out and went to make my daughter breakfast. I was about to start when the doorbell rang. There was a guy dressed in construction gear. I opened the door, and before I can say hello, he goes, "Construction dude."
You need to get your dogs inside.
Me: And why is that? Construction dude:
Because we're here to take the fence down, and we can't do that with the dogs out there.
Me: Oh, sorry. I didn't realize everything had been all sorted out. No one notified me. Yeah, I'll get them in. I close the door, and as I'm about to head to the back door, a thought crosses my mind that maybe I should confirm everything with my landlord. Well, good thing I did, because he had not received one call from anyone about the fence. Not even a missed call from a number he didn't recognize. Nothing. At this point, my sister was awake, and I had continued to leave my dogs outside. My landlord suggested for the supervisor and asking him to have the guy who hired him call my landlord. I forgot to mention, totally important though, my landlord owns the whole fence. Even though it's technically a shared fence, he's the one who owns it completely. They need my landlord's permission to take it down or face destruction of property charges. I don't even have a chance to finish writing my landlord's number down before there's another knock on my door. My sister answers this time. Construction dude:
You need to get the dogs inside.
Sister: You need permission to be here. My landlord just informed us that he had no idea anyone was coming to take the fence down today or any day,
which is pretty concerning since he's the one that owns the fence. Construction dude. I don't know anything about that. Sister. I get that. That's why I need to talk to the supervisor. I can give him landlord's number and we can get all of this cleared up. My sister then goes to talk to the supervisor. I stayed inside with my daughter, dog still outside. My sister comes back and says the supervisor was going to call the guy who owns the houses to get him to call our landlord. About 20 minutes go by when construction dude comes back. Everything has been cleared up. Could you get the dogs in now? Sister. Yes, we can. Thank you. I let the dogs in and my sister and I go about our day. I should have called my landlord to confirm a second time. About an hour later, I get a text from my landlord. Landlord. Hey, no one's called me yet. Are the construction guys still there? When I tell you my heart was in my stomach and throat all at the same time, I quickly call him. Me. Oh my gosh. You need to get down here. I'm so sorry. The construction dude came to the door and said they worked everything out with you and were given the go-ahead to start working. I should have called you again, but I didn't even think. I'm so sorry, so sorry. Landlord. Whoa, it's okay. It's not your fault. You shouldn't even have to be dealing with any of this. The guy should have called me as soon as you said you didn't own the place. Can you do me a favor though? Go see how much of the fence they tore down and take pictures, please. Me. Yeah, I can do that. Landlord. Awesome. Send them to me as soon as you have the pictures. I'm on my way. I then go out back to have a smoke and pretend I'm playing on my phone while getting pictures. They had already taken down the majority of the fence, and the only parts left was the frame about halfway down. I sent the pictures off to my landlord, then went inside to wait till he got there. Now, reader, if you haven't already figured out, my landlord is a super calm guy. He knows his laws and knew this was going to go his way no matter how it played out. When he got to the house, he walked up to the supervisor with a smile on his face. Everything that follows was told to me by landlord after he was done talking. I'm trying to remember this as best I can. So landlord went to the supervisor. Landlord. Hey, I'm C. I own this house here, and this happens to be my fence you're currently tearing apart. Supervisor. Eyes go a bit wide. Oh, we had permission to… Landlord. No, you had permission from no one. No one with the authority to give you permission anyway. I also know for a fact my tenant told you that you needed to have your client call me. Supervisor. I called him, and he said he didn't need to do that, and that everything was good to go. He's already had your permission. Landlord. Then I suggest you call him up for me, please. Supervisor calls the guy and explains that my landlord was there and wanted to talk to him. Landlord. Hey there, it's C. I'm the guy that owns the house that you're currently destroying the fence off. I'm just wondering why you thought you had permission to tear apart my fence. Guy. Oh, I didn't realize the house was owned by someone else. The girl I talked to said I could go ahead and replace the fence. Landlord laughs. No, she didn't. She told you that she didn't own the place and you needed to call me. Even gave you my number. Guy. Now that's not true. Landlord. Don't. Just don't. I trust my tenants more than I trust you. So stop with this, and instead, let's talk about the fence. I want my fence back the way it was. Guy. I was of course going to put the fence back. I was going to change the style a bit. Is that all right? Landlord. No, it's not. Had you called me, you and I could have worked out a new style of fence. All I would have asked is that you at least look similar to the rest of my fence. Now, if you want a new fence, you can pay to have my whole fence replaced to look the same. Guy. Okay, I'll have the fence redone the way it was. Landlord. Sounds great. Also, don't forget, the nice side faces me. We all then had a good laugh about how everything played out. Before leaving, my landlord asked if we needed them to do anything to make all this easier on us, since we were the ones living here. We asked that he have them bring in a temporary fence so that we could still let the dogs out. Landlord said he would make sure they brought one in at the expense of the guy, of course. You may think this is the end, but it's not. A temporary fence was brought in, essentially these huge metal panels held together by a metal connector at the bottom and zip ties. We didn't care, it worked. They built the fence, but they left a huge gap between the sidewalk and the backyard and the fence, about a foot deep and wide enough that I could fit my whole leg in it, no problem. They also left the temporary fence for 2 weeks until my dad took it apart and heaved it over the fence. Also, my front gate had to be taken apart, and instead of building it the way it was originally, it was connected to fence, went as wide as sidewalk, but then another little bit of fence was built to connect it to the house. Instead, they built me a barn door instead of a gate, so heavy that it leans, so I have to lift it every time I go to open it, or else it's hard to get it unlocked. I also don't have sidewalk where the new lock was. It dipped down into a rock bed where I would be too short to even reach the lock. Called my landlord, and he had the guy have the workers come back twice, once to pack the gap they left behind, and then the second time so they could add paving stones to the rock bed so that I could reach the lock. Again, this was all done on the guy's dime, and when he tried to complain about it, my landlord reminded him that this could have gone a whole other way and be costing him a lot more money. Also, that he could make him have them rebuild the gate to the original instead of just fixing the problems they created. Hope you guys enjoyed. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend I don't want to spend time with his family? I went to meet my boyfriend's family for the first time, and it was a weird vibe. First, his brother, who was in a similar field of work, started quizzing me on my work like it was a job interview. I ended up joking that I don't talk shop unless I'm getting paid for it. After that went on for a while. He asked me, kinda rudely, if I just got into that field to meet a wealthy man. My boyfriend and his family are wealthy, so I said that I was in it to out-earn the wealthy man. Another joke, or half joke at least. I like my financial independence. Next, his cousins asked me if I was a workaholic, like some ex of some guy in the family who was never home and never did her household chores. I said, nah, I'm out of work at 5 on the dot. I care a lot about a good work-life balance. Then they were saying I was such a millennial, which I don't know what they even meant by that. There was more, but overall it felt like a job interview or an interrogation rather than a social event. It felt like I was being asked questions and set up to be judged. I left early after a conversation with his mom, who was asking me about my homemaking skills and not really liking my answers that my boyfriend is the better cook, and before I met him, I was eating too much takeout, but he's teaching me how to cook. His mom made a comment about how, in her day, the ladies brought something special to the table. I kinda tried to play it off as a joke, saying that I bring him beer, but it really didn't land. Anyway, I headed out early and he stayed that night. But as soon as he left too, he wanted to talk about why I had dipped super early. I said I felt like I was being interviewed for a job of being a good wifey instead of just meeting people socially. And I feel like that's not something I enjoy. I like hanging out with people who are chill and accepting. He said he felt like they were just being protective and trying to make sure he was ending up with a good partner, and they meant well. And they are like that whenever a new partner gets introduced, but they warm up to people quick. That every lady in the family had been questioned a bit and bond over it later on. I said I already know I'm a catch, and honestly, they were disrespecting us both. Me by making judgy comments, and him by not trusting him to pick a good partner himself. I said that I didn't feel like going for Thanksgiving or Christmas anymore, unless some people apologize and agree to not do this weird hazing stuff again. He said that he felt like I was being unreasonable. I should give them another chance at Thanksgiving. I feel like he's being insensitive and pushing me to go somewhere I'm not respected again. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend I don't want to go to his family's holiday after they met me and it felt like they questioned my worth for hours? Am I the jerk for refusing to help save my mother's house that my dad and stepmom kicked me out of? My dad, stepmom, stepbrother, and I were living in the house my mother originally owned. I moved out after my stepbrother took the box that had all of his mother's jewelry out of his mother's closet and concealed it inside my closet. I had no idea about it until my stepmom walked into my room and asked me one more time if I still insisted on not letting my stepbrother share the car my dad gave me. I said no, and she said, "Okay then," casually walked to my closet, opened it, pulled out her jewelry box, and started yelling. I freaked out, asking her what was going on. Dad came into the room and she started crying, claiming I stole her entire jewelry box and was planning to sell it. I was stunned. I swore I didn't steal anything, yet my dad didn't believe me. My stepmom demanded I get out of the house, and I had to leave because of the pressure. My stepbrother admitted to putting the box inside my closet and bragged about it. I lived with my uncle for 7 years. I missed my room, backyard, and my mother's memories in that house. My stepbrother took over everything. My dad didn't attempt to connect for years and kept calling me thief, until recently when I visited my uncle's and he happened to be there. He looked thin and exhausted. He said he found out my stepmom set me up and apologized for not believing me then. He said he forgave her and hoped I'd forgive him because he won't forgive himself if I don't. He then talked about having debts and needing money to pay off debts or he'd lose the house and asked to borrow money from me. I got quiet. Then I asked, why can't they sell the jewelry they accused me of stealing? The car he took back. Heck, where's my stepbrother when they need him? My dad shook his head and asked if my mom would want for me to see him homeless with no help, or worse, see the house she built and her memories there go to waste. I said I won't pay after they kicked me out of my mother's house because stepmom didn't want me there. You must be wondering where my stepbrother is now. He's passed on. He moved to another town, became a police officer for 4 years. He conned people out of their money and houses. He robbed people blind, took possession of their legal documents and falsified them to his own benefits. He passed suddenly at the age of 33, so he didn't enjoy his ill-gotten gains for long. My dad and uncle agreed that by paying, I'm saving my mother's house, but it's no longer her house after my stepmom turned it into a shrine for her son, who she calls a hero, and used my room as storage for his things. When I walked in for the first time after years, I felt nothing. The connection is no longer there. I still refused to pay, and we had an argument, then I left. My uncle is saying I'm making a mistake by thinking irrationally and in a spiteful manner, and should consider that my dad and stepmom are helpless, sick, grieving, and need help. Am I the jerk?
Karen waitress chases us down, claiming the $50 tip we left was not good enough. Last night, my husband and I went out to a very nice dinner at a steakhouse. The total was like $150 for the two of us, and we didn't even get dessert. We both preferred to tip cash, so we used a card to pay for the meal, rounded to the nearest dollar for the tip there, and then left a $50 bill on the table. The restaurant did close at 10 p.m., and it was just after 10:10 when we got outside. We both thought the $50 was enough of a tip, but the waitress disagreed. She followed us outside and got very upset that we stiffed her. At first, we thought she had only seen the card slip, so we explained that we'd left cash on the table. She scoffed at us and said that she knows that, but 30% isn't high enough. This is a very nice neighborhood, so she likely did often get higher tips, but we weren't too thrilled with her service. We had to wait for refills, even though there were only a few people, maybe like 10 in the restaurant. The food also took forever to come out. We'd have been gone before closing and had time for dessert, but the food came very slowly. She was demanding a higher tip, so my husband pulled out $100 and asked for the $50 back. She clearly thought she was going to get the $100, so she gave it back. My husband put them both in his wallet, and we got into the car and drove away. I know servers depend on their tips to survive, as they get paid rubbish. Were we the jerks here for taking the tip back? My husband and I are conflicted on this. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the waitress? Please let us know.
Hold on, Karen is a waitress? My brain's starting to hurt.
Got $40,000 for accidentally confiding a secret to a gossiping coworker. I worked at a chain salon in the US for minimum wage, plus tips. We got paid on a sliding scale. The more you added services, the more your hourly pay. Then for back to school, we started offering $10 haircuts. It's dumb to offer a big discount on back to school because that's when everyone needs a haircut, but whatever. Except, to advertise this sale, we had to stand on a rickety step stool and hang a 10-foot long, 3-foot wide banner off the roof of our store. The step stool alone made it a dangerous task, but on top of it, the sidewalk was uneven. Our manager insisted we do twice a day, open and close, in case someone steals the banner. Because certainly, someone would want to steal a banner with a logo that says $10 haircuts. It was annoying, but I was looking forward to my next paycheck. I had a high service dollar per hour, which should have meant a bigger hourly pay and paycheck. Except it didn't. That $7 haircut discount? It was coming out of our final service dollar calculations, and we ended up making significantly less than usual. I'd worked there for years, and this was the smallest back-to-school paycheck I'd ever seen. I went in the next day and was upset. That morning, a coworker, who was a total brown nose and gossip, and I were outside setting up the banner. It was my turn to stand on the rickety step stool, and I said I was glad this will be the last time I ever do this. I was fully prepared to make a joke about how I was going to fall and hurt myself when the petty revenge idea came into my mind, and I swiftly executed it. When she asked why, I told her not to tell anyone, but I'd accepted a job at another salon with a set schedule, higher commission, and $5 more an hour. I said I'd planned on putting in my 2 weeks, but they needed me to start sooner, so I was going to work the weekend and not come back. This would leave us understaffed for the back-to-school rush. After reiterating she could not tell anyone, especially not our boss, she agreed. I left early that day,
and on my next shift, my boss pulled me into her office. She said she had heard a rumor that I was leaving to work at a different salon. I told her I had a much better offer elsewhere, but if she could match it, then I would love to stay. She had to put a call into our district leader about the raise, but said I could work with a set schedule starting the following week. I was working until 9 p.m. some days and at 9 a.m. the next. The unpredictable schedule made finding childcare a pain in the butt. I was consistently ranked number 2 in sales for our store and the district, so the DL approved the raise and I stayed there another 5 years, which means I got an additional $39,000 in pay for accidentally telling the salon gossip my secret. I also got 20% commission on the $500 to $1,000 a week in product sales. The Pro Revenge. I also started printing out my service sales slips from the day before at the beginning of every shift, so that when payroll readjusted the paychecks to include coupons, I could pull up my record and dispute it. According to payroll, there was nothing they could do about it. I stayed another 5 years, raising the issue sporadically until they brought back the $10 haircut sale and I quit. A few months after I left, I was made aware that a different employee in another state filed a class action lawsuit and I got a letter asking if I wanted to be part of it. I accepted, and the lawyer loved receiving 5 years worth of documentation, emails from corporate and payroll, etc. They had to go back through all of my paychecks and compensate me for the difference. This included adding the free haircuts rewards program and discounted haircuts as their whole amount, increasing the service dollar 19 cents an hour here and 30 cents an hour there, added up, and despite the fact that the settlement was split with a lot of people, I got $10,000 from that, in addition to my adjusted pay, which was around half the settlement amount. How I made my landlord and neighbor pay over $14,000 in fines for harassing me. First of all, before I start, I'm about 80% sure these two are involved with each other in a romantic way. So I travel a lot, and I live in an RV mostly full-time. I've stayed at the same park, however, for the last 9 months. I've had issues here. They've called the police on me for arguing, not joking. They will ignore me in the office, all because there was a small mistake on the paperwork when I stayed here on an overnight 9 months ago. Something happened and they tried to use that to kick me out. However, the owner said it didn't matter and all info is pulled from the registration. So blaming the paperwork for being off by 1 year on the RV as a cause for eviction was far-fetched. There were a few other incidents, but I just figured it's cheap here and I can pay my rent over the phone. Who cares? And don't really plan on going anywhere, as where I am, all the parks are full for snowbird season. Plus, I got a new job here. Anyways, we had a neighbor who was miserable. We could tell from day one. We also have 2 cats. They hang out on our porch mostly all the time. Occasionally they stray, but they're older and don't go far. So around 6 weeks ago, after 9 months of being my neighbor and never saying a word, he started acting very erratic. Randomly approached my wife as she was washing the car outside and got in her face and started screaming, saying that he dug cat poop out of the dirt behind his 1979 bus on bricks, and now he was going to put traps out and poison. Somehow, management had heard the commotion and he had told them to come, but they pulled up and quickly pulled him to the side to talk to him privately, refusing to even listen to us. We were very weirded out, calling him baby, sweetheart, etc. So they said, "It's his space. He can trap all he wants. If your animals are going onto his property, then that's your fault." Now, this park is known to have so many cats, they keep feeders by the front office. I warned them what they were doing was illegal, but they said, "We've been doing this a long time. We know exactly what we're doing. Call animal control if you don't believe me." I said, "Okay," but he threatened to hurt them, so I'm making a police report. In case anything happens, I want him to be on record as having threatened them. They came, took the report, and oh man, did that make him mad. Still at this point, I hadn't figured out how to get my revenge. Animal control said it was legal and didn't do anything. We immediately got the cats microchipped and went to Lowe's to buy cat traps to teach our cats what a trap is and how to not go into one. Easiest trick I've ever taught an animal. Took 1 try, and now they're terrified of anything resembling a trap. We were stumped. The cats were going stir crazy. Then 5 days later, she leaves a letter on my door, a self-help eviction saying I have no choice but to leave immediately, and she was turning off the power on this day. I told her if she did, I would call the local police, as that's a self-help eviction and you've already demonstrated malice by calling the police on me for asking you a question you don't like. Assisting in the trapping of my cats while encouraging other cats to stay. Self-help evicting, and at one point she refused my CDC declaration letter, and I have all these things recorded on video. On top of all of this, she says he needs to start his Harley and let it run for 45 minutes to warm up, even if he's not riding.
That's what Harleys need.
2 feet from my bedroom window when he knows I work nights and I'm asleep. Essentially trying to force me out, saying my dummy camera isn't allowed, however, his real camera pointed at my space is. I was very prepared for an eviction threat, as these guys get away with so much, being that they can threaten eviction and people will just roll out in their RVs. Not me. No, not me. After the manager finally spoke to the owner, she realized she had dug herself into a hole and now couldn't evict me unless I had not paid rent, as they had refused to show me a contract or any rules the entire time I've been here. They don't like to have written rules, so they can change them as they need. The manager told me I was never allowed into the office unless to get mail, and I must pay rent over the phone with a card. Still though, I wasn't comfortable because my neighbor now had put out around 4 different traps, some as close as 1 foot from my property line. He still hadn't caught anything, so by chance, I ran into a property manager while out shopping for my own trap, and he told me some interesting things. I did a little research and found out that trapping in Nevada is illegal without a permit. Too many protected species. So I knew the cats would never go into a trap. We did about 5 sessions with them, and they got to the point where they even saw the trap, they'd just hide. So I told the landlord, it's fine, he can keep the traps. I had heard from a neighbor that he saw the managers opening up the storage room and loading his truck with animal traps, but he didn't know about our situation, so he was confused. This is when I put my plan together. I knew the longer he saw he was getting his way, the more traps he would put out, and the more erratic he would become. He started revving his Harley for 45 minutes about 3 times a day while sitting inside with the radio on blast. Then he'd get a chop saw and cut lumber into as small of pieces as he could, and then stand 10 feet back and launch them into a steel trailer. I had around 2 gigabytes of video from my cell phone, so I only actually caught about half of it. I knew he was losing it. I put a dummy camera facing his front door, and that's what did it. He got too close and pushed my wife on camera. I had successfully driven him nuts and had what I needed for a civil harassment suit, and I just let him stew. Every few days, I'd notice a new trap. Finally, when he got up to 14 traps, his tiny RV space looked like a landmine of cat traps. My cats were, and probably are still traumatized from the sight. The next move was to call the Nevada Fish and Wildlife. I emailed the pictures of the traps. They finally showed up today and found his 14 traps. The fine is $1,000 per trap. These people also are cops that don't get to ever bust anyone, so they took it very seriously. They confiscated his traps and hit the park with $14,000 in fines. Afterwards, she called me asking me why I would do that. I informed her I'm not done and that I'm building a case on her and her little friend for harassment. I've since been moved to one of the best spots on the property near the $1 million RVs next to the pool and hot tub with a bar and pizza about 200-foot walk. And yes, I begged for a new spot to end this from day one, but she said,
We are booked up, full all winter. We won't have even one spot until after Christmas.
Open offices suck, but I've proven my point. Okay, so I just turned 20 and was the youngest guy at a company I just, half a year, started working for. The guy, which was just a bit older, was over 30, and he and I could get along really well, and I was lucky, since I'm quite an introvert, that he took me into a small group of really nice colleagues that were more friends than just work buddies. The office we worked in looked really nice, but all the levels were connected with a large open area, so when someone on the first floor was making a call, people on the third floor could follow the entire conversation. This wasn't a huge deal most of the time, because we always had a radio turned on, and people who wanted to concentrate just put on headphones. Overall, a very informal workplace and no real management layer, just a couple of directors and no actual managers. Me and the rest of the group were sitting on the top floor, and since my buddy was a lunatic, we were laughing and just chatting a bit. In comes a message from the CEO asking me to come into the meeting room, which was only one of 2 closed offices in the entire building. This wasn't that strange, since even though I was young, I had particular skills what the company relied on, so they had often asked if I could join a meeting. But this time, only the CEO sat there, and instead of the usual joking around, he asked me to sit down like a school principal would if you did something wrong. I noticed that you're coming along nicely with a lot of your colleagues, and I think they really have respect for you. The thing is, it's rather noisy lately, but I don't want them thinking I'm sort of a police officer demanding them to stay quiet since we're all friends in here. So I want you to keep the noise levels down and tell them to stay productive. I told him that I would pass on the message, but that it didn't look like it was my place to tell the people who worked here for years and are all at least 10 years older than I was that they had to obey my authority since I didn't feel I had any. Well, since the rest of the group dug into the meeting calendar and found out there wasn't anything planned, they instantly looked at me when I came back with those big eyes, which are ready for gossip. I passed on the message, and they were all a bit shocked, stating that they were like this for years and they never had any trouble. A couple of weeks later, I got called into the meeting room again by the CEO. My colleagues directly noticed how I walked away from my desk that I was called in again, as I had my head worried about what the issue was this time. No one else was called in the meantime, just me. And yes, I was asked to sit down again, and the CEO began with a huge sigh. The office is still very noisy. I had a really simple request to keep it down, and you just couldn't listen. You're even the one talking the loudest of all. I was raised to not interrupt people, but that time I did. Well, you've stated before that I have a deep voice which carries through the entire building. Since then, I've done my best to keep my voice down. It didn't matter as he continued his lecture. In the end, he made a conclusion. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to split you guys up. You guys are no longer allowed to sit where you want, even though we have a flexible workplace. I'm starting with you. You'll be sitting across from me on the first floor. It's not for the noise, it's just better for your productivity. I'll be informing the rest, and you're not allowed to discuss this with them at all. So, being both upset and flabbergasted, I took my laptop and backpack without saying a word and moved to the first floor. I picked up my headphones, which I normally never use, put them on, and went to town on my work. This became my routine for 2 weeks, and if someone had a question, sorry, I have to concentrate on my work. If they needed me in a meeting in order to get a new client, I responded with, I won't be able to be as productive as I need to be. And most of all, I worked exactly the hours I was paid to, instead of coming in 30 minutes early and staying 30 minutes longer as well. The CEO started noticing me turning bitter and tried turning it around. Hi, lovely day, ain't it? Which I responded to with, uh-huh, and putting on my headphones again. Want me to grab you a cup of coffee? No, I'm good, thanks. Even though I still worked my butt off during work hours, it became noticeable that the hourly rate dropped and my colleagues started complaining to the directors that they really needed my expertise, but that I wasn't available for them. The CEO loved calling me into his office, but now that he had to admit to his defeat, I just received a small message while he sat across me. You're free to sit wherever you want. It has come to my attention that it is in the interest of the company if I give you and your colleagues a bit more freedom. He continued to bug me about leaving 5 minutes early, even if I came in 30 minutes before I had to, but he never dared to talk about my work ethics ever again. Moral of the story: don't try to push for more productivity. It might backfire. Oh, and open offices suck. Got stiffed by a jerk last night. Decided to confront him after he set up my bar for 3 hours and 30 minutes after we close. So it's a typical Sunday night in the Bible Belt. I'm used to crappy tippers at this point, and I rarely say anything to those jerk tippers as I know it's unprofessional and can cost me my job. But there were these 2 guys eating and drinking at the bar I work at. At first, they seemed friendly and nice. They were getting into craft beer, so I showed them some stuff, poured some samples, yada yada. They sat at the bar for about 3 hours. One of them had their bill already cashed out and wrote a fat line through the tip line, and I wanted to know why I didn't get tipped. The dude that stiffed me had a Total Wine shirt on, so I figured he worked in customer service and should at least have the decency to tip their fellow service worker. So I confront them as they were getting up very swiftly out of their seats. I straight up asked, "Was everything okay with the service?" They replied, "Yeah man, everything was awesome. Thanks for staying open late for us." And I go, "Well guys, you didn't tip me, and I didn't know if it was something I did or not. But like, what the heck? I depend on tips to pay my bills. I just want to know if it was something I did." I know I shouldn't have said this and been so aggressive, but I obviously was thinking with my emotions and not my brain. Meanwhile, my other coworker, she was bartending with me, came up to the dudes who stiffed us and said, "I just want you to know that I make $2.13 an hour, and you didn't tip me, so I wanted to say thank you." She's about 6 months pregnant, so I'm sure she was more upset at them than I was. His friend felt horrible and came back and left 20%, and the dude who stiffed us was so embarrassed that he stormed away, came back, left $2 on the tip line. His bill was $37, and then stormed off. Well, today I was about to go into work, and the Total Wine guy called my boss, told her that I embarrassed him in front of a full restaurant, even though it was 30 minutes after close and they were the only ones there, and that he was going to leave a tip, but I didn't give him a chance, even though he was cashed out for a whole hour before he got up to leave. My coworker and I received a warning and were told not to do that again. But, although that was so unprofessional of us to pull that stunt, I'm pretty sure that guy is going to remember that for a while and may start tipping bartenders and servers, especially if he's going to be drinking craft beer in breweries and bars. That being said, I don't think it's smart to confront crappy tippers, especially cursing around them, because they can definitely get you back and cost your employment. Gonna try my hardest to stay humble after that one. Karen gets sent to the hospital. It started off as a good day until I went shopping at the local safe stay. With what's going on in the world, I was determined to not linger and moved on about my shopping with purpose, not lingering anywhere unless I had to, such as in the case of pausing to read a label. I did pause to help one elderly lady who asked me politely if I could get something off a top shelf for her. That was my mistake. I turned to go back to my shopping when I heard, "Ahem, excuse me," the call of the wild Karen. Before I even turned, I popped out the words, "I don't work here, never did," turned as I spoke, and there before me was a living meme, every inch of a Karen. "You helped that old jerk," she screeched, "so don't try to tell me you don't work here." I helped her because she asked politely for my help, you rude jerk, unlike you. So you can just toddle off and take care of your own shopping. And by the way, I don't work here, I said sharply to her, turned and went back to my shopping, steadfastly ignoring her screeching and yelling. She followed me, all the while screeching for a manager. A worker approached to see what was going on, and she yelled, not asked, full-on yelled at her to get a manager immediately. The worker scuttled off, not wanting to deal with an irate customer to find a manager. Can't hold her to any blame here. It didn't take long for a manager to show up. She, the Karen, started yelling how I was rude to her and refused to help her while at work, blah blah blah. While she was informed that I'm just another customer, she went crazy and got much louder, insisting that I do work there and she saw me helping someone else. It was then she made a huge mistake. I turned and stepped a few feet away to grab something I was getting anyways when she screeched a wordless and charged after me. She made a grab for me, determined to see me punished for not being her servant of the moment. I dodged her easily and stepped aside, letting her rush past. When she did, she tripped and fell flat on her face and didn't immediately get up. I had not done anything to her. She did this to herself. If that were the end, you all know I wouldn't have posted here. By the time she started to stir, the police and an ambulance had been called. Police arrived first, within 5 minutes, so must have been nearby. They were checking her over as best they could without moving her when she started stirring and trying to get up. Of course, she tried to say that I had shoved her, but the manager had already told them what happened. They would view the security footage when she had been seen too. She was a mess too. She looked like she had really gotten hurt. I wasn't cuffed as I was being calm and not angry. If anything, I was concerned for her. The paramedics arrived shortly after and did their thing and hauled her off on a gurney. Last thing she yelled is that she was suing everyone, very loudly and very rudely. I pointed at the ceiling and said, "Security cameras, good luck with your suit." The police took a look at the security footage, got my name, address, and phone number, and sent me on my way. I'm puzzled at how nearly everywhere I go, someone thinks I work there. Most people are polite and even apologetic when informed that I don't work there, but some, they make shopping or getting out a hilarious and annoying adventure. Am I the jerk for asking my brother to give me £20,000 to help pay for my wedding since he makes a lot more money than me? I, 23 female, am engaged to my fiance, 27 male. I'm also the mother to my daughter who's 4. I wasn't able to go to university full-time since I was raising my daughter. However, I'm currently studying history online where I will hopefully be able to become a history teacher. Balancing studying while raising my daughter hasn't been easy. However, having my fiance supporting the family has really helped since my fiance works in a research lab. We have enough money to live comfortably, but saving up money to have our dream wedding would take years. My brother, 28, male, works as a hospital doctor. His wife also works as a hospital doctor, so to say that they are well off would be an understatement. My brother hasn't had the same struggles of raising a child since they both don't want any kids. I don't mind the fact that they don't want to have kids, but they've been able to save a lot of money due to this. Recently, I asked my brother if he would be able to help pay for my wedding, since having him contribute to my wedding would help make it a magical moment for me. My brother offered to give me £5,000 towards my wedding, which honestly surprised me. I might be wrong here, but surely as a hospital doctor, my brother should be able to contribute more to my wedding. I told him that I'd really appreciate it if he could give me £20,000 for my wedding, since it would really mean a lot, but he refused. I'd be lying if I said I didn't make my annoyances with my brother clear, and I told him that his refusal to help pay for my wedding is selfish, and that if he doesn't help contribute to my wedding, then he won't be able to come, since it isn't my fault that I don't have a lot of money to fund my wedding. We had an argument afterwards, and I haven't been returning his calls since. The rest of my family is helping to contribute to my wedding, which makes his refusal even worse. Despite my brother's actions, my father thinks that I'm being too harsh on my brother, and that me not inviting him to my wedding would be upsetting for him. Am I missing something here? Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother? Please let us know.
Bruh.
No, ma'am. The cashier did not think you were 88 years old. I'm the assistant guest services manager for a semi-upscale grocery store. On this day, I was behind the service desk, working on the schedule and answering the phone. I get a call from a woman who was clearly irritated off the bat. She requests to speak to the highest available manager. There are about 5 I could have chosen from that day, but I've learned how to field some of these calls to keep them off my boss's desk, which she appreciates. Me. Yes, ma'am. My immediate supervisor has stepped away to lunch, but I'm the assistant guest services manager. I'd love to try and help if I can. Lady.
Well, I just got home and read my receipt for the wine I purchased earlier, and I am livid, young man.
Me. I'm so sorry to hear that. What seems to be the problem? Karen.
I am not 88 years old. I wasn't even born in November. This was extremely rude of your cashier to make a joke at my expense.
At this point, I have to stop and think. What the heck? Do I even have a cashier that would find that amusing? No. Wait a minute. Me. Ma'am, did we check your ID? Karen.
No, because I must look like an old hag to you kids.
I'm 34. Me. On your receipt, is the birth date listed as 11/22/33?
Yes.
Me. I see the problem now. In order to keep lines moving, we enter 11/22/33 as the birth date for anyone we believe to be over 28 years of age. Karen.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry. That makes sense. My checkouts at your store are always fast.
Me. We try, and I'm glad you shopped at our store today. I hope you plan to return.
Well, your potato salad is really amazing. See you soon, and thank you.
Click. Am I the jerk for not inviting my son to my wedding? I, 34, male, used to be in a relationship with Sarah, 35, female. We met in middle school, dated on and off in high school, and even talked about marriage in college. This all came to an end when I caught her cheating with my roommate and we broke up. It was really hard, but it got worse when I found out that she was pregnant. Immediately, I sought her out, and to confront the possibility of her baby being mine, and Sarah avoided me while sending her friends and new boyfriend, Adam, the guy she cheated with, after me to stop harassing her. I reached out to her mom explicitly stating that I only wished to know if there was a chance that I was the father, and after enough persistence, Sarah contacted me directly, called me pathetic, that I wasn't the father, and if I continued, she would call the police. Being a broke 19-year-old, I took her at her word and washed my hands of the situation and transferred to another college and moved on with my life. Eventually, I met my fiancée, Miranda, 29, female, and we've been very happy together. Before the lockdown, we were supposed to get married, but understandably, that got pushed back. Now that restrictions are loosening up, we're moving forward with the plans, but have drastically cut down on the number of invites to abide by the venue's safety policy. After completing the list and sending out the invitations, I was recently contacted by Kevin, 15, male, claiming to be my son. Obviously, I didn't take him at his word and asked who his mom was, and he said Sarah. I told him that before he was born, his mom assured me that I wasn't the father and asked him why he thought I was. Kevin explained that it came out that Sarah's husband, Adam, wasn't his biological dad, divorced her, and hasn't spoken to Kevin in years. I agreed to take a paternity test and was shocked that I was his dad. I had asked Sarah if there was any chance, and she had denied it. Miranda was surprised, but also supportive, and I've been speaking to Kevin regularly, while also making plans to see him. He saw on social media that Miranda and I were planning on getting married in the spring and wanted to come. Unfortunately, everyone that we've already invited have all RSVP'd and made special accommodations to attend our child-free wedding. There's no way Kevin can come without Miranda and I disinviting someone else, which we feel is rude. I told Kevin that while I can't invite him to the wedding, I promised to put together another event so he can meet more people in my family. He seemed understanding, but his maternal grandmother called me up to berate me for not making him a priority now that I'm aware of his existence. Am I the jerk? ETA, because I keep seeing this. The venue has a policy on the number of people who can attend due to safety. This isn't about fire codes, but lockdown, not the fact that the wedding is child-free. ETA 2. Thank you to those of you suggesting that we explain the situation to our guests to see if anyone would be kind enough to allow Kevin to come instead. I will talk to Miranda about this, but also reach out to Kevin directly since, so far, only his grandmother is giving me flack for not inviting him. Be rude to my wife? I'll double your rent. My mom has been living in a house which belonged to my dad. They were divorced, and he wanted her to have a good place to stay. He passed last year, and I inherited the place. After checking out the place and running the numbers, I learned that the place is in terrible shape. It needs a ton of repairs. My mom doesn't take good care of it, and he has only been charging her $500 per month, which is almost 1/6 the market rate. I will be losing money on the place. I do not have a good relationship with my mother. She's mean. My mother literally asked my wife if she was dating me for a green card. I've had very limited contact with her since I found out her true colors. I have no interest in spending my family's money on her. I've told her about 6 months ago that I will be doubling the rent, and I was dead serious about it. She didn't take me seriously. I have presented her a new contract, and she is bitterly angry with me. She can afford to pay it. She's got a substantial part of my dad's assets when they divorced. I'm sure she still has the money. I feel like a jerk because she's stubborn and she's strong-arming my brother into moving in with him. My brother and his wife are softies who can't say no to her thin veneer of politeness. I feel like crap because she's probably going to move in with them and make their life heck. We are not exactly hurting for money, and I feel like a jerk for creating a situation where my brother will have to take her in.
Not the jerk. Maybe your brother can learn to set some boundaries. Next.
Lose your temper on the hotel staff? Kiss your job goodbye. I've moved from working as a waitress to working hotel. I've been doing it for 4 months now. There are similarities and there are differences. Both jobs you have to deal with jerks. I was a waitress, but mostly hostess in the restaurant industry, so now I work front desk. Oh, the joys. Sitting people is similar to checking people into rooms. My backstory over. The hotel I work for has had the fortune of being booked out for 3 months by a company, trial basis, and if things work out, it could turn into a year-long contract. Thus far, everything has been running smooth, and we like these people and they like us. When I first started, I of course experienced all types of people, and my experience as a waitress/hostess has taught me very well how to handle them. Since this company bought us out, very rarely do we get the Karens. It's been 2 months into this arrangement. A week ago, at around 8-ish, I check a gentleman in, explain how things work. He goes to his room. My shift is about to end, and my relief arrives. He's always early. It's 10:55 p.m. The gentleman, I shall now name K, calls the front desk. My relief, who shall be named R for relief, answers the phone and puts it on speaker. "Hi," he says. "I checked in a few hours ago, and I don't like this room." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear this, sir," R says. "What's the problem with the room?" "It's just too loud. I can hear the highway. I want to get a quieter room, not facing the highway." "Well, sir, it is a bit late, and most of our rooms are checked in. But if you could give us a moment, we will call you back if we can find a room for you. R and K hang up. I'm trying to get all my things done so I can leave. R is trying to get everything settled for his night auditing. We shouldn't give him another room, I tell R. It's not that I don't want to help the guests, I really do, but we're limited on rooms, and we have like 10 more reservations they booked their people for. Also, since he's settled in his room for a while, I don't have housekeeping around to clean it up and give it to the next guest. It's not like we're expecting these 10 people to show up this late, but you never know. They might show up and one of them will be out of a room. Just look for me, he says. So I do as requested, and I find a room while also not sacrificing one of the 10. It's a courtyard-facing room. Yeah, let's all dance. I make all the changes and call the guy to inform him we have found him a room not facing the highway. Hello, Kay. This is front desk. We have a room for you, I cheerfully inform him. The clock strikes 11 p.m. and I'm exhausted and I want to go home, but I want to make sure this is settled before I leave. What room is it? So I tell him. Here, the fun part begins. No, I don't want that room, he informs me. It will be near the lobby, and during the daytime, the lobby will be too loud. I take a moment to collect myself. Well, I'm sorry, sir, I say with my best sugary goodness voice ever, because my I will hurt you voice wants to come out, and I know that could lose us this contract, and thus far, I want to keep this contract, because until this moment, I haven't had to deal with any jerks. It's refreshing. But you want a courtyard-facing room. I found you a courtyard-facing room. It is 11 p.m. tonight, and if you are unaware, we are booked solid and are limited on the rooms we have available. R stops what he's doing, and his interest is piqued. He comes forward and places the call on speaker so he can hear. K stops using his friendly voice. Well, that is unacceptable, he says. I demand a better room, because I'm not staying in this room because it's too loud and I refuse to take the other room. R, who has been with this hotel for such a long time, starts to chime in, and I can see that he's ready to match this guy's tone. I stop him. My waitressing and hosting skills have come forward. I want to make sure I get my tip while also putting someone in their place. Still in my best sugary goodness voice that will get you cavities, I respond, Well, sir, it is late, and like I've said, we cannot accommodate your request. If you had checked in earlier, like at 3 p.m., he cuts me off. Well, I wasn't here at 3 p.m. I checked in at 8 p.m. Now it's time for him to insert company into this. I work for blank, and I demand I get this service. My company is paying for me to stay here, and I want a better room. I continue as if he didn't interrupt me. I would have been able to switch rooms for you as I had plenty of rooms facing courtyard, but you checked in late. It is 11 p.m., and unfortunately, because your company has booked the whole hotel, almost every room. Once again, he's cutting me off. R is ready, wanting to speak, but I shake my head. I whisper, I got this. I work for blank company, and I want a different room, he says, nearly yelling. I wonder if people are aware that you yelling makes us want to help you less. Again, continuing as if he never interrupted me. Is booked. Now I have found a room for you, and it is yours. So you can either take this room or stay in yours. He grows silent because he knows I'm not budging. Finally, he speaks. This is unacceptable. I will let blank know about this. So, are you staying in your room or switching rooms? Well, I don't want that room, and you're being a jerk and not finding me a better room. It takes every ounce of energy for me not to lose it on this guy. So, I'm a jerk because I can't give you something I don't have? Well, sir, I begin and have resorted to my favorite, treating him like a first-grade teacher treats a little kid. We don't use that kind of language. When we aren't getting our way, we should express ourselves in other ways. I'm truly sorry that it's very late at night and we cannot accommodate you. And I'm so sorry to tell you, but the room I was trying to offer you is no longer available. It was given away. I'm ticked, and I will let the company know about this. Well, I am sorry, sir, and please feel free to tell your company this. I will be surely telling them about this interaction as well and telling them that you've used this kind of language with me. I hope he hangs up. Like, dude, you're asking late at night and think we can do it? R applauds me and says, Girl, if it was me, I would have done things differently, but I love your approach. I put in my report about the whole conversation, and the next day when I come in, my manager pulls me aside and tells me the guest complained about me to the company saying I wasn't being accommodating. Boss said he read my report, looked at everything, talked to R, and guess what? His room is no longer occupied. I found out a couple days later the guy got fired for being rude. What these people don't know is that his company told us to tell them when they're being unkind to us because if they are, they're fired. If they can be rude to us, then they don't want them working for them. Edit. This company who booked us is a huge company that deals with customer service, and that is the reason that they told us to do this. If they can treat us like this, then how will they treat their customers? Entitled parent wanted my truck and called the cops saying I stole it. This happened a few years ago, and I'm on mobile, so please excuse formatting. I moved northwest from the Bible Belt of the South 3 years ago, and my truck is an '01 GMC Southern Comfort. This truck originally belonged to my father, but when he passed, he left it to me. I, 27 female, had to fix many issues with it, from lifter tick, front rack leaking, exhaust fell off, and even the broken fuel pump. I fixed it up the way he wanted and took a nice road trip getting it up here. I moved to an area with an influx of individuals from California, and the Karen is one of the few that are nuts. She complained to the front desk of the apartment complex for anything and everything. She once yelled at random people at the parking lot because she wanted an eco-friendly environment and demanded we all sell our gas vehicles for Teslas. When we said we can't afford them, she screamed at more people about how she could afford hers. I don't drive the truck very often because Dad wanted to keep the mileage low, and it's a lowrider, so it's a Sunday driver. It's been over 2 years since this happened. It was late summer, and I decided I'll take it to the car wash to clean it up a bit. Now this truck is loud, but not obnoxious. Everyone who has owned a V8 knows a cold start in the morning can be loud, and the Flowmaster Outlaw under it doesn't help. She came out, banshee screaming at me that I need to tone it down because people are sleeping. It was 9 a.m. I apologized and said, I haven't cranked it in over a week. It's going to be a little loud. It's a 5.3-liter V8. She looked at me more and smiled and asked, Can my son have it? Me. What? No. Why would you ask that? Her. Well, my son is in high school and would absolutely love it. Plus, you have multiple vehicles and you don't need more than one. Me. Absolutely not. This truck belonged to my dad and it's not for sale. If you don't give it to me, I'll tell the front desk on you. Me. Go ahead. And I drive off. I later got a call from the front desk that she complained and to meet them there. Me. Hello, manager. How can I help you? Manager. Hey, OP. Karen is here complaining that your truck is too loud. Do you have the copy of the exhaust paperwork? Me. Yeah, I'll go get it. Grabbed it out of my center console and handed it to my manager. Manager. You see, Karen, her truck is in legal noise ordinance limit, and even then, it's not that loud. Me. I'm sorry, Karen, you feel my truck is too loud, but it's in legal limit, and I don't drive it every day. Karen stormed off, slamming the manager's door. Me shrugged shoulders. I don't know what her problem is, but she tried to ask me to give her the truck earlier. Manager. Weird. A few days passed, and it was nice, but as I was going to go put gas in my truck, Karen once again asked for it for her son. I said no. She threatened that she would call the police on me. I said go ahead, waited by my truck for them. They came and said they got a report of a stolen vehicle. They separated us, and I told them everything. Officer. So, Karen has been harassing you and demanded the truck? She claimed you took the keys from her son and pushed him. Me. Yes, officer. Here are the registrations from the last several years, including the ones with my dad's name on them. If you follow me, I'll get the title that's in my name and his death certificate. We got the papers from my lockbox. Officers reviewed them together and told Karen, Ma'am, filing a false report is serious. Karen. But she stole my son's truck. Officer. No, you falsely called us and harassed her. Karen shoved the officers, trying to run between them, and was arrested for assault. Karen was evicted for throwing rocks at gas trucks in the parking lot a few months later and encouraging her 2 teen sons to jump in the beds of the trucks. She claimed they were free-range kids. Yes, like chickens, and thus were above the law. She also screamed at a couple and left a bag of dog poop on their door. Yeah, she wasn't very pleasant as a neighbor. Am I the jerk for not backing up my neighbor on her noise complaint and saying, actually, her family is more disruptive? I live on a corner with 2 houses close by, one to the left of my place with a family living there, and one behind my place that a young couple recently moved into and is renovating. We're in a residential area of a city, but it can be noisy with traffic, neighbors close by, pedestrians, etc. I'm pretty good at tuning the noise out. The family next door is probably the most disruptive though, since they have kids who spend a lot of time outside when I'm at work and they yell a lot. They often have other neighbors' kids over their trampoline or playset, so the group gets pretty loud when I'm working from home. I've never said anything despite them distracting me from work because I figure being tolerant of some noise is just part of living in a city. At the other house, the young couple seems to be renovating and DIYing, but there isn't as much noise, or at least not as much that is attention-grabbing as yelling or big groups of kids. They do a lot of their work after my workday is ended, and I'm either less in need of quiet or going out at night and not there to hear it. Anyway, the wife of the family next door approached me recently saying she was filing noise complaints with the city and the police about the new couple. She asked me to file reports too, to put more pressure on the city and the cops. I told her I wasn't bothered by their renovation noise, so I wasn't going to report anything. She seemed surprised by that, saying that I was even closer and that it must be bothering me because even at her house, which was further, the noise was making it unlivable. I said that I genuinely wasn't bothered. She got frustrated with me, saying I didn't care about the community and how the neighborhood was being brought down by young people with no respect. She said that they should hire contractors who can do the job quickly instead. I said, well, I don't think it's a good idea reporting them. They're not that loud, and you'd probably be starting things off on the wrong foot. She said that they were making her house unlivable. I was getting kind of frustrated, and I said, I live the same distance from their house and your house, and honestly, y'all are a lot louder than them. They've never been loud enough to be disruptive to me, but honestly, your family often is. I wouldn't be standing in a glass house throwing rocks like that if I were you. She got really frustrated with me and accused me of being just like them, inconsiderate young people, and banding together with them. I said that she was being a hypocrite, and if she kept trying to get me to report the new neighbors for noise, I'd be reporting her house instead, because out of everyone, her house was the noisy one. That made her really mad, saying we were all childish and inconsiderate. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor that actually she was the noisy one? Am I the jerk for leaving after my boyfriend made me sit in the kitchen by myself when his doctor friends came to visit? Hi, this is a minor conflict that me, female 31, and my boyfriend, male 33, had this week. We've been together for 9 months. He's a pediatrician and I have a job at an elementary school. He's sweet and makes me feel happy whenever we're together. He was missing me lately and had been wanting me to visit, and he was too busy, so I only got the chance to visit yesterday. We sat down in the living room in his apartment, and he was about to make some coffee when the door rang 13 minutes after I arrived. He went to take a look through the hole, then returned and asked me to get up and follow him to the kitchen. I asked why, but he didn't say. He had me enter the kitchen and said his 2 friends, who are his work colleagues, doctors, came to visit, and he wanted me to sit tight for a few minutes till they leave. I was confused. I asked, why not let me just meet them? And he said no, not like this, and asked me to not come out of the kitchen until they leave, then went to welcome them. I sat still, waiting as the time passed. They stayed for an hour, and I started calling Donnie, but he didn't answer me. I felt uncomfortable and couldn't wait anymore after I was being ignored like that. I just took my purse and walked out the kitchen and told Donnie that I got bored of waiting for his friends to leave, then said I was leaving and walked through the door, immediately feeling upset. He was stunned, and so were his friends. He called me later, saying what I did was disrespectful and rude. He said he asked me this one favor, and I didn't do it. I replied that I left because of the treatment I received. No matter how much he tells me to make myself at home, I was still a guest, and I was made to feel like I was less than his doctor friends. But he swore it wasn't like that, and that he considers himself lucky to have known me, but still said what I did was not cool, and leaving like that, and saying what I said in front of his friends was wrong of me. I'm adding more information to make a few things clear. Edit 1. I already met his family and other people, but none of them are in the same field he's in. We also meet publicly. Edit 2. He claimed that they were talking about stuff I wouldn't understand, and I'd feel awkward sitting there not knowing what they were talking about. Edit 3. He said I should have made myself busy making dinner in the kitchen instead of waiting until his friends leave, since we agreed to eat dinner together, but I ruined our plans.
Talk about red flags.
Old school construction architect with an ego. So this dates back to 1998. I had been working construction for a year as a drywall finisher, spreading mud, when I was offered a job on a big crew. Only reason they wanted me was to be a translator between English and French. I was good, but not fast or great at this point. But hey, $18 an hour was good money. We were working on a 5-story building. It was the first time I really had seen just the bones of a building. For those who are unfamiliar with this era of construction, I'm going to give a little background on how it worked on sites this big. Each company had their own construction trailer. No one really had email, so each trailer had a couple of phone lines and a secretary. This building was for a real estate company. It was to be their headquarters. It was designed by an architect in New York as a favor to the owner of the building. So here's where the problem goes. My boss, Al, had all the framing, hanging the drywall, finished the seams and acoustic ceiling tiles with metal grid. Al goes to the general contractor with an issue on 3rd floor training room. Al: "We got height problem with 3rd floor ceiling." General contractor: "What's wrong now?" Al: "He's got it at 4 feet off the floor." Contractor: "Wait, what?" Al: "Yeah, both ceiling reflected plan and elevation shows 4 feet off the finished floor. If I scale it, it would be 12. Contractor: "Yeah, that don't sound right. Go ahead and send a request for information." Back then, requests for information were different than today. Usually meant someone was going to have to pay. So Al faxes over the request for information and marks it urgent. When request for information comes back, they were sent to both the general contractor and the subcontractor. So I'm sitting with Al and the general contractor just chatting around, and both secretaries come out to the site, almost running with high heels through the debris, and both with grins on their faces. I'm thinking, oh no, this should be good. Al and general contractor: "Slow down, ladies. Where's the fire?" General contractor's secretary: "You got an urgent fax." Al's secretary: "We got the request for information back." Looking at the other secretary, giggling. They look at their paper, then look at me, and the general contractor reads it aloud. "Request for information from Office of Jerk Architect, Inc. Urgent request information of discrepancy on ceiling height from Al office about training room. Answer: How hard is it for you construction workers to understand? Never scale anything. I don't make mistakes. Refer to page A804 for detailed height instructions." Cue malicious compliance. General contractor: "Well, Al, what does A804 say about ceiling heights?" Al: 4 feet, bud." General contractor: "Hey, Frenchie, do you think you can translate that to the ceiling guys and tell them it's a hot priority? I want it done by Sunday." Al: "You heard him. Tell him to drop what he's doing and go do it." Me: 10-4. I go to the guy and they greet me. I tell them what had just transpired and told them that Al said to make it 4 feet. They grumbled, saying they would charge to do it again. Now this training room wasn't your typical space. It was 300 feet long by 40 feet wide that could be separated to make multiple training rooms or one giant one with a folding partition. Monday came. General contractor instructs the electrician to install all the lights as per prints. Yes, even his prints had 4 feet notation. Typically, we would wait for electrical inspection, but we didn't. By Wednesday, the crew is putting tiles in. Saturday comes, and there's an owner meeting where he walks the job site with general contractor and talks about progress. Everything is going good till he gets to the 3rd floor training room door and sees a bar 4 feet from the ground, and all the wires for the ceiling are in plain sight. Owner: "What the heck is this? Don't you know how to read blueprints?" General contractor: "Yes, sir, we do and we did. We also sent an RFI. Shows him the facts. Owner grins. Yeah, he definitely has an ego from heck. Do you have everything documented, pictures and all? General contractor: "You know it." Owner: "Okay, smarty pants. Now do it at 12 feet, 4 feet from the deck. You're making 20% on this mess up, aren't you?" General contractor: 20% to the build invoice. We're going to have demo crew come in, then all new materials. Plus the crew already said it's going to be a 50% upcharge since we're preventing them from going to their next site. Yeah, just be happy it's not coming out of your pocket. Because the architect gave wrong information and it was built as per his guidelines, he had to pay out a few thousand out of his pocket to us dumb construction workers to fix his mistake. Learned 2 valuable lessons that day. 1. Always do as you're told, no matter if it makes sense, except when it's endangering someone. And 2. Document everything, no matter how trivial. It will cover you. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend I'm tired of him always bringing his friend around? I've been dating my boyfriend for a year. He has this friend who's a girl. Not that it really matters. It's just the situation altogether upsetting me. Even if it was a guy, I'd be bothered the same way. So he's very close with her, to the point that sometimes I feel like I'm third-wheeling them. I feel like I'm in one of those 3-people friend groups and I'm the outcast while the other 2 friends are closer. She'll always invite herself, even to our own romantic couple dates. At first, I tried to be patient with it and not make a huge deal out of it, but lately, it's getting too much. I mean, I've always expressed some discomfort to my boyfriend about it, but he says we'll see what we can do. But he'll do nothing. We were celebrating our 1-year anniversary last weekend, and she called him mid-dinner and said she's coming over. We were having dinner at his house. He told her it's our anniversary, and it's better to hang out another time, and she insisted and said she won't be a bother and will show up anyway because she's too bored to be alone. She hung up on him after that, and 10 minutes after she showed up. During those 10 minutes, I was really upset and talked to him about this and how it can't keep happening. He said he'll see what he can do about it and not to worry. So she came over and decided she wanted to watch a movie. Then she started treating me like a maid, asking me if I could cook something so that she could eat as well because she didn't like the food we had prepared for our anniversary and made a joke that we didn't think of her while preparing the food. To avoid a fight, I let myself act like a maid for her. I shouldn't have. The next day, we all arranged to go have drinks. During the whole time out, she kept complaining about how much she hates public spaces. She chose the place we went to, and how she can't stand people. She always pointed out how disgusted she is by couples, and she's glad we're not the classic lovey-dovey couple, and she can enjoy being out with us. Then I accidentally slipped and told her that it's because you never leave us the option of having lovey-dovey time alone. She took offense to it and confronted me by saying that if I don't like it, I should be the one to leave. I told my boyfriend that I'm tired of him bringing her around so she can boss me around and always have a negative energy about everything. She called me the jerk, and my boyfriend partly agreed with her, saying I shouldn't take it too far. Once we got home, I told my boyfriend that I've been telling him how it's bothering me for ages, yet he does nothing to fix the situation. He says I'm right, but I shouldn't be mean to her because she's upset now and she just wants to be friendly. That made me feel a bit guilty, and I want to know, am I the jerk?
Why are you with this guy? These stories never cease to amaze me.
Why is it so difficult for people to understand patio seating? Our restaurant opened a makeshift patio for lockdown, and it's the biggest source of frustration at my job. So many folks come in to order takeout from us only to walk outside and eat at our tables. I get it. The weather is nice and they want to enjoy their food, but we have signs and tell customers that the outside patio are fully serviced and for dine-ins only. Most people understand and pack up and leave when we ask, but sometimes we get difficult people who like to argue. Last night, I had to argue with a group of guys and their wife and baby. We just got food. Why can't we sit here? Do you always get food from restaurants and takeouts and start eating there? We paid for our food. Yes, you got takeout. This is for dine-ins. We're not dining inside. We're outside. The tables outside are the very same as inside. Same rules, same policies, same service. Let me see your policy. Sir, you don't work here. And it went back and forth. Mind you, I gave them 3 different chances to change their order from takeout to dine-in. I explained to them that the tables outside won't be available to them, and they nodded their heads saying yes, they want takeout all 3 times. The thing that got me was during the entire time of me arguing with them, telling them they can't eat their takeout there, one of them opened another box in my face and started eating that too. I then told them they gotta pack it up or I'm calling the cops for trespassing. Dude then asked if he gets some fries, then it's cool, right? I told him that's not how it works. People can't order $100 in takeout and then sit down and get a side of fries for $5 to sit there. So I told them I'm refusing them service. They had to go, and I called the police. Also frustrating was when the cops came, they asked me to just get him some fries. I had to pull the cops to the side and explain to them that it's not fair to my server. If they get some fries, what's the tip gonna be? 50 cents? Then we gotta clean everything else up. Took them 20 minutes and more talking to police to finally leave, but they finished their food anyways, so I'm still mad about it. If anyone's reading and made it this far, Would you suggest anything to help the situation? Why can't I use my ripped up receipt for a return? This was about a year ago, but it's still super vivid in my mind. I was working as a cashier at a craft store and a lady comes in to return some fabric. I ask her if she has a receipt, to which she pulled out a receipt that was ripped in half. For me to pull up the transaction, I need the barcode on the receipt. Of course, that was not the part of the receipt she kept. Cast. We've got me. We've got the lady. We've got the manager. Me. Ma'am, do you have the other half of the receipt? Karen. No, I ripped them so that they fit in my wallet. Me. Okay. Well, I don't see the fabric on this half of the receipt, so did you possibly pay with a card? I can't look up the transaction otherwise. Karen. No, I paid cash. I expect cash back since I have the receipt. Me. Ma'am, it doesn't show me on the receipt how much you purchased this fabric for. I can't help you. No, your policy says if I have a receipt, I can return it. Me. You have half of the receipt. Well, how else would I get it to fit in here? Shows me the little wallet slot she puts them in. I see other torn up receipts. Me. Maybe fold them? Get me your manager. At this point, she's whispering under her breath how useless I am. Of course, like I'm the one that tore her receipt. Now my manager has been working here for over 40 years at this location and seems to get a kick out of dumb Karens. Manager. Sorry, I can't return the fabric without a receipt or a credit card to look it up. Well, how? Maybe you should fold them instead of rip them in half. Excuse me? But your return policy states... Manager. Yeah, and for that to happen, you need the full receipt. We don't even know you bought the fabric from here. Karen starts opening the folded fabric to try and see if there is our logo or something on the seamed edge, which has another fabric store's name on it. Manager. See, that's why we need the full receipt. This isn't even our fabric. This is our store. Karen scoffs. Well, hopefully they will do a better job at returns then, you guys. Manager. Not if you only have half the receipt, they won't. She was a great manager. I loved her. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.